debris signatures, but we are not seeing anything like that. So that is certainly some good news. The shearing also seems to be kind of trending a little further south, a little lower on the charts here when it comes to our wind shear. So lower wind shear, no big debris detector at this point in time, and then the broad rotation is becoming a little broader. So let's check it one more time. You interrupt me, Samira, at any time if you see anything, please.
Yeah, I'm watching the actual bulk of the rain on links 2, and you can even see it with that velocity indicator right there. It's starting to separate a little bit.
Yeah,
there,
we're starting to see it.
But the thing that concerns me a little bit, I mean, I know it is moving to the north, but we have areas outside that if it does push a little bit more to the west, they could still, of course, see those really strong wind gusts from the outflow boundary of that storm, and then continued with those wind speeds really being elevated and probably do some damage there. So we're talking about areas like, Allenhurst, going back to the west. You have Scottsmore. I think that one's pretty good in shape right now, but we do have East Shiloh, Mims, East Mims.
You can see a pocket of some pretty heavy rain right now, kind of on that western fringe of that broad rotation. So again, on top of all this, we got the tornado warnings that come and go. Seem like they could come more than go, but we are going to continue to see that flash flood warnings. That is in effect for a big portion of Central Florida. You can see that big green polygon here. That is a flash flood warning until 9:45 for some areas. Other zones here, flash flood warnings are in effect for the next 3 hours or so, as we're going to continue to get inundated with a lot of rain in a short amount of time. Right now, we are seeing a little bit of a break right now, from the I-4 corridor towards the most part of 95, with the exception of some of the rain that's been able to wrap around and clip parts of northern Brevard County's coast. But again, as of now, look at all the rain that is still yet to get here. A little further to the south, though, let me just kind of give you a quick look at where that center is actually located. Taking us here in Tampa, look how close. It looks like Sarasota is about to start approaching more of kind of the start of that eye wall of, again, still major category 3 Hurricane Milton. All right, this is a live look. This is State Road 405 west of Cape Canaveral. That certainly just overall kind of an overall gloomy, soggy day. We're starting to see the winds at times. The winds weaken a bit. They ramp right back up. So it's something that we're going to be watching over the next couple of hours, especially with that severe weather threat that we still have in place. It's something that we certainly stressed about a lot yesterday. We weren't stressed about it. We have certainly wanted to make sure that you were aware, and really stressing the point that we were able to have this potential of these rotating storms. We have had a lot of signatures yesterday in a lot of our computer model runs that were really talking about that potential of seeing those significant spins in the atmosphere that could, and what already has verified to be a very extremely active tornado event across a big portion of Central and South Florida earlier today. All right, it looks like, I think they have now discontinued it.
There's another couplet that is situated offshore, Candace. As we look a little bit back over the open Atlantic, you can see just parallel of the Kennedy Space Center. So there's a little couplet right there too. And we're going to continue to see like all these isolated storms as they swirl in. I'm going to take the velocity off in just a moment here because I want to show you exactly what I'm talking about in terms of the movement. When I put the movement back here out, say the last 30 minutes, you see that swirling motion. A lot of these storms are relatively moving to the north or to the northwest, but they're coming in, and you do see as they kind of swirl back and they hit the coastline.
And then it get done,
Exactly. So whenever we see that, we're watching for those little couplets just to see if they're broad. That one,
a little bit of a spin right here.
Exactly. So when you see those have the likelihood of coming ashore. They also have the likelihood, if they're very tight, to be water spouts that actually end up on land. So that is all of the intensity. That's the intensity that we're watching for, especially as we head into late tonight, going into tomorrow morning, when that threat continues as Milton begins its landfall and, of course, crossing over. So, but a lot of this leading these leading storms have really started to really pack a punch. I mean, they've been packing a punch since early this morning, but picked up that intensity in the second, right after lunchtime. But now we're seeing that little bit of drier intrusion. You can see some of it, right over Osceola as well as Brevard County starting to move in. And that's what we were mentioning in a lot of the models last night, is that we would see that drier intrusion come in and actually shave off some of those rainfall totals. But again, we're seeing so much heavy rain with these passing storms that it's adding up really, really quick.
It is. And so at the end of the day, right now we have no tornado warnings in place. That has since they canceled it early there in northern Brevard County, but you can see there is a big old swath of plenty of rain and storms.
And it's canceled.
Yeah, okay,
Sorry.
perfect. No, that's good, it's good. We are going to continue to track a lot more of this. If any of them continue to clip parts of the coastline and start creating a little bit of spin, we get those tornado warnings. We, of course, will be bringing it to you. But right now, let's toss it back to the anchors at the desk.
Candace, Samara, thank you. Our coverage of Hurricane Milton continues right after this break.
Whoa, what is happening?
We're packing up and taking our newscast on the road. So let's go.
Every month, we're going to be broadcasting from a different community.
Are we coming to your neighborhood?
To find out, go to clickorlando.com/hitstheroad now.
Truthfully, from the bottom of my heart, yes, I got huge results. We need to change that banner. Getting huge results.
See the stories you want first with the News 6 app. When every minute matters, turn to News 6 for breaking news.
One of our insiders, right?
Yes, and honestly, a nice thing that you guys do, and it pulls us in even more. Really appreciate that.
Contact the Channel 6. We've got almost every dollar back. I sure appreciate you being there when I need you.
Clickorlando.com, #1 in Central Florida and best local TV news website in the U.S.
Got something to say? Leave a comment in the all-new News 6 app.
Traffic doesn't happen in here. It happens out here and here. I'm traffic safety expert Trooper Steve. And yes, I am a real state trooper. I grew up here. I'm the only traffic expert who's actually investigated crashes, who's patrolled these roads. I know how that traffic is going to affect your morning commute. So if you want real advice from my real experience on your Central Florida roads, you got to start here and you got to watch before you go.
Subscribe to News 6's Strange Florida newsletter on clickorlando.com.
Sail drone deployed out in the Gulf, and get this, it detected a 28-foot wave and 75-mile-per-hour wind gusts, and those numbers were recorded more than 40 miles from the storm's center. That is some intense surf out there. Wow. And we are now just hours away from the storm making landfall on Florida's Gulf Coast. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Lisa Bell.
And I'm Ginger Gadsden. We have crews stationed all across Central Florida, bringing you the latest on preparations and, of course, warnings. First, though, we must start with Chief Meteorologist Candace Campos with another look at the forecast. Candace.
I don't have a tornado warning to talk about
Thank
right now.
goodness.
Okay, all right, but at the end of the day, we're still talking about a lot of rain coming down right now. We are racking up significant rainfall. Meteorologist Americo Keenis right now working up some of those numbers. Of course, we're continuing to update every minute or so because of how heavy some of this. Working up some of those numbers. Of course, we're continuing to update every minute or so because of how heavy some of this rain is really falling. Now, because of that, you see all the green. It's impossible for me to cover all of them. But if you are listening to my voice and you live in East Central Florida, you are going to be under a flash flood warning, as we are already starting to see a lot of flooding concerns. Our reporters, again, as I mentioned, spread out all across Central Florida, being our eyes and ears, but of course, doing it safely. Looking here at the radar, look at the absolute sheer amount of lightning that was detected just a few moments ago. That is that one kind of final push of that one feeder band that just brought an absolute tornado outbreak across parts of Central and South Florida earlier today. Now, that center of Hurricane Milton, again, just a few miles offshore, now starting to approach more of the worst of the weather in areas of Sarasota and Bradenton, kind of that eye wall really starting to approach that area. Now, landfall still expected within the next few hours, between about 9-10 o'clock this afternoon and into the evening hours. Almost forgot what time it was. Sustained winds right now of 120 miles per hour. Still expecting that core to push through Central Florida. Okay, so let me kind of backtrack. I clicked pretty quickly throughout this forecast cone. So again, Category 3, it's got to eventually get to Cat 2 to a Cat 1. As of now, the National Hurricane Center expecting Category 1 core by about 2 a.m. on Thursday in and around Haines City, Polk County. Many of the models, I have to admit, are in-house computer models. Even yesterday, when all the models were shifting south, we continue to keep this trend because at the end of the day, that is synoptically and kind of the way the atmosphere was set up was really the main way the system was going to go. And the National Hurricane Center is certainly agreeing with that model run, showing it finally emerging out into the Atlantic by tomorrow afternoon. Still as a Category 1, and then weakening into a tropical storm. So again, although we've had strong to severe weather, we're going to continue to get inundated with heavy amounts of rain. After that, into the overnight hours, we are talking about that big core of damaging winds. So we'll have more details on what you can expect, especially as we head into the overnight hours. But please, please make sure you are finding ways of being notified throughout the overnight hours, as this weather certainly could be quite dangerous into the evening. Back to you guys.
All right, Candace, thank you. And as we know, the power is expected to go out across the state during Milton, and that includes here in Central Florida. So a heads up, if your home loses power and your TV goes out, you can still stay up to date with the latest on Hurricane Milton. Keep a charged radio with you. And our partners at FM 101.9, 105.9 Sunny FM, and Mix 105.1 will have our live continuous coverage for you on their airwaves.
Now, if you can access the internet, we have options for you to watch our coverage as well. You can head to the App Store and search WKMG, download our Hurricane Tracker app, our Pinpoint Weather app, and the News 6 app to watch the latest updates for your area to keep you and your family safe.
Also, throughout the storm, meteorologists Jonathan Kagas and David Nazario will be live streaming on clickorlando.com, our News 6 YouTube page, and on the News 6 Plus streaming app for your smart TV. They are also answering any weather questions you may have, and they will be with you throughout the storm. So again, even if your TV goes dark, you can still watch us on your phone or your tablet, your iPad, whatever.
Yeah.
Just make sure that your devices are charged. Do that now. Well, the first people to feel the impacts of Hurricane Milton are going to be people along the Gulf Coast.
Yeah, and that is where we find News 6 anchor Eric Von Anken. Eric, every time we check in with you, the conditions seem to be deteriorating. What's it looking like out there right now?
Yeah, hi, Ginger, Lisa. So little by little, we're seeing some changes. Wind certainly picking up here, stronger gusts, but not a whole lot of rain. You know, we keep waiting for these buckets of rain dumping down on us. We had a little earlier, picked up a little bit, but now it's just heavy wind, and this storm ain't far away from us. So according to what Candace was just saying, about 35 miles out that way, straight behind me. Again, Gulf of Mexico, just off the Sarasota Bay. This is the bay This is the downtown area. This is the marina. And this is where most people are if they have not left, because the barrier islands have been evacuated. Let me show you around a little bit. So this is the end of the mainland here, really. So there's still some condos, some hotels in this area that you can see still have lights on. And that's kind of the middle of the channel, so that you're looking at the intercoastal waterway here, going under the big bridge, the John Ringling Bridge. If you've ever been to downtown Sarasota, it's the one that arches really up high. And starting to really smack into those pilings down there and that seawall at the end of where those condos are. And we're seeing flashes of light in the sky. It's not lightning. You know, this is a very common thing in hurricanes. It's those transformers blowing, because it's not a white flash. It's kind of like an off-color flash. Yeah, there was another one. And so that, of course, means that the power is going to start to go out real quick here in downtown Sarasota. Most of it looks like, is already out on the barrier islands. I was telling you they shut the water off yesterday, and now we're not seeing any lights on. Of course, I should also be fair and say that we can't really see much of the barrier island. There was a strip of land behind me that was the first key. I think that's Bird Key. That's the closer one. But then beyond that, that's where Siesta Key is, Lido Key, Longboat Key. Again, all of those have been shut down for the past couple of days, and that's where the majority of the damage was from Hurricane Helene. And so many people there got flooded out. And so a lot of them left 2 weeks ago. They were trying to clean up. Once they started, they got to a point where all they could do was just throw the inside of their house onto the sidewalk. They left. And so, you know, this one is coming, and not just that they couldn't be there, but with the evacuations and the projected storm surge being twice what it was 2 weeks ago, they knew they likely would have a very difficult time at surviving being out there on the barrier islands. But back here, again, in the downtown area, there are still lights on and there are still people. Jeff is under the marina here, under a heavily reinforced concrete building. Jeff, can you pan over to the right a little bit so we can kind of look around downtown a little bit? Trying to look at Jeff's camera, seeing what he's seeing. So there's still all these big boats in the marina, like I've been telling you, and they're still really not moving, which is a good sign. Which is certainly a good sign, but again, we expect that to change. And like I was saying, the high rises just behind the marina where we are, some lights still on, so people are choosing to stay. Some of them, they are higher up. Remember, the emergency manager said if you're going to evacuate, don't evacuate up, evacuate out. But these people believe, certainly hoping, that they will stay safe. It's just a question of how high does the water come up and how quickly do the lights go out. We're not seeing a change in storm surge yet, and I know the eye is still offshore, but we are expecting, again, the water to rise a little bit. The projection, like I said, was about 15 feet. This is one of those floating docks, and I can tell you, water has not come up yet. I mean, it's bobbing, and it's a heavy dock because you got some big boats parked alongside these docks. But the elevation, the height of the water has not changed yet. High tide is not until later on tonight in the overnight hours, right around 3:30. And our indicator, I know it's getting dark, in the distance is the end of Bayfront Park here in downtown Sarasota. And there is again, I think that's a fishing boat or a sailboat sitting squarely on the lawn in the middle of the park. And so that washed up because of Hurricane Helene. It's been there ever since. They had no way of towing it out of there. And the water, as rough as it is out here and as windy as it is, there's another transformer, the water still has not breached the top of Bayfront Park. There's a walkway that goes all the way around there. So again, that's kind of been our indicator here. How high has the water level come up? And so far it hasn't. But man, it's just going to take a foot over that park, and then that boat, that fishing boat, is going to be floating all over again. And then, of course, who knows where it's going to go. So far, the boats that that are tied up around here are holding. We're seeing them get whacked up against the dock. Some of the sailboats, topsy-turvy kind of thing, rocking all over the place. But so far, guys, things are holding out. Power's still back on here, or still on, I should say, in downtown Sarasota, not Orlando. I know I said Orlando earlier, but there's a lot
we
going
know
on
exactly
here.
what you mean, Eric, and we know exactly where you are, too. I'm worried about that palm tree that's hanging on for dear life near you, and be careful out there. I know you were saying that you have not been getting the sheets of rain you were expecting, so we asked Chief Meteorologist Candace Campos to explain exactly what you're seeing and why. Candace?
Eric, thank you so much. I mean, you always show the best picture of what's actually going on. You describe things so well, but you're right. At the end of the day, when we talk about how much rain is coming in, we're actually starting to see some of that dry air actually filtering into your area, which is why, as you are a veteran of these large systems pushing onshore, it's not that typical rainfall event that is happening right now. So let me show you real quick of what we're talking about here. So again, where Eric is right now, it's pretty close into Sarasota there, just north into the Bayshore Gardens kind of zone right here. But if I widen out the view here, look at the lack of rain on the southern side of this. This is one of those things that we're talking about. This is a very unique setup of a hurricane where we normally see the entire system all filled in with heavy amounts of rain. This is a very top-heavy north side of the center is where we're seeing a lot of the rain. So for his purposes right now, he might actually not be dealing with a lot of the rain. The problem that is going to be really happening over the next few minutes and within the next hour or so is going to be that storm surge pushing all that water up into parts of Venice, all the way up into Sarasota. So again, the center of the storm as of now is still sitting a few miles offshore, about 25 miles offshore. But of course, you've got the wind out there. That is for sure a guarantee. But it's that eerie lack of rain that Eric first mentioned right off the top that I wanted to explain why that is. And it's that dry air that we've been talking about helping weaken the system a little bit. That is what we're actually starting to see now with that live look. Now, that's just kind of an interesting, because we're here in Central Florida seeing so much of that rain. We're right there in the center of pretty much where that eye wall is going to be approaching in Sarasota. He's barely seeing some of that rain. That is why this is such a kind of an opposite system in some way, and it's why one of those reasons why here in Central Florida the concern for us has really been the rainfall where they are at. It's the sheer amount of wind and storm surge. So I'm glad that Jeff and Eric, they are a dynamic duo in these storms. They are always making sure that they're doing everything they can to show us these pictures, but also do it safely. So thank you so much. And of course, I think we're going to be going back to them several times throughout the rest of the newscast.
That is for sure. All right. Thank you, Candace, for that explanation. And our coverage of Hurricane Milton continues after this break.
Because of you, the insurance people decided that they're going to help. You did it. Channel 6 did it, and that I will say thank you.
Subscribe to News 6's Strange Florida newsletter at clickorlando.com/newsletters. Got something to say? Leave a comment in the all-new News 6 app.
Hey, go to clickorlando.com and sign up to be an insider for exclusive content.
When every minute matters, News 6 is getting you all the facts and every detail that matters to you for breaking news turned to News 6. Sign up for our News 6 Insider newsletter at clickorlando.com/insider. Log into your account on your phone and get all of our exclusive content with the News 6 app. Sign up to be a News 6 Insider today at clickorlando.com/insider. Let's make the news easier for you. News 6 is streaming. Download the News 6 app and start streaming now. Pin it your best moments now when you download our newly updated News 6 app. You might even catch your pins live on clickorlando.com. Just search WKMG in your app store today.
As a working mom of two, I know how crucial it is to be ready for any type of weather. So whether the sun's shining or the storms are rolling in, I'm here looking out for you, helping you start your day, staying ahead of the weather, and making your mornings a little brighter. I'm meteorologist Candace Campos. Let's tackle the day together, weekday mornings on News 6.
Want your money to grow faster but don't know where to start? That's where Black Men Sundays comes in, a weekly podcast hosted by award-winning photojournalist Corey Murray. Hear real conversations from African-American financial experts and learn key techniques to help build your wealth. Black Men Sundays, every Sunday on clickorlando.com.
Well, as Hurricane Milton moves east, Central Florida's westernmost counties are the first to see the storm's impacts.
News 6's Jarrell Baker joins us now live from Marion County, where he has been keeping a close eye on the conditions out there for us this evening. How are things looking right now, Jarrell?
Yes, I just got an update from the PIO. They just told me that they're in a briefing right now, as you can see over my shoulder. Now, they do have people that are in shelters, at about 130 people across all 9 of their shelters. Now, once again, there is a pet-friendly shelter among them, as well as a shelter for somebody specifically with special needs, and also one for sex offenders as well. Now, these shelters are actually going to be open throughout the storm. Hopefully nobody's out there on the roadways right now or outside. However, if you are and you need a place to go, those shelters are available. Now, they said they're expecting to still see a lot of wind and a lot of rain in their area when the storm intensifies. Right now, they haven't heard any of those tornado warnings or anything of such damage or power outages here in the area, but they do expect those to happen the next morning, which is why they're briefing each other, coming up with plans, just talking about how they'll respond over the morning. So they do want people to know, just to make sure that if you are going to be sheltering in place, especially if you're in one of the mobile homes or if you're in an RV, they have a lot of wind that they're going to be expecting to get overnight. May not be able to get to everybody in those areas when they respond the next morning. So they're trying to just make sure that everyone is aware of the situations, hoping that everybody is able to keep up with all of those updates.
Yeah, Jarrell, have you had a chance to really step outside and see what things are looking like on the roads out there in Marion County right now?
Yeah, me and my photog Daniel have been stepping outside periodically, and from right now it just seems like normal for the rain, but it seems like it's the calm before the storm. Things may intensify. Yeah, throughout my lifetime, I've lived here in Florida majority of my life, and you know, I've been through 6 hurricanes, and sometimes they seem okay for right now, but when that storm hits, it hits. So that's why they're just trying to make sure that everyone is inside, sheltering in place, and just has a safe place to stay, just so they can wade out this storm. They're also going to be feeling some of the effects of that storm over tomorrow. They said that probably around the afternoon or late evening tomorrow, that is when they'll start sending crews out to assess damages and areas to make sure that everywhere else is safe to go. They also said if they want someone to check on your place for you while you're away or you're at a shelter, just contact them and they'll go out there and check that out for you. Here in Marion County, Jarrell Baker, getting results, News 6.
And real quick, Jarrell, before you go, you know, when you look at that radar, it looks like that area could see a lot of rain in the next 12 to 24 hours. Have you heard yet of any major power outages in Marion County?
Not so much. Luckily, they haven't heard any power outages, no downed trees. However, they are expecting some of those in the area. I mean, you know, a storm like this could intensify and impact different areas differently. It's not their first rodeo going into a storm, which is why they have several crews on standby. As a matter of fact, here in this building, they have about 150, a little bit over more of different crews, from sheriff's office to first responders, everyone that's ready to go out there after the storm so they can assess all of that damage in the area.
All right, Jarrell Baker, thank you. I think that's one of the few counties where we have not had a tornado warning tonight. So,
fingers crossed.
Yeah, we know you're going to continue to stay there and cover that area for us. Thank you. And our coverage of Hurricane Milton will continue right after the break.
WKMG hits the road live. Are we coming to your neighborhood?
To find out, go to clickorlando.com/hitstheroad.
Subscribe to News 6's Strange Florida newsletter on clickorlando.com.
Clickorlando.com, #1 in Central Florida and the best local TV news website in the U.S.
Got something to say? Leave a comment in the all-new News 6 app, available now in the App Store. Get there on time with instant traffic updates from News 6. Turn on traffic notifications in the News 6 app now. See the stories you want first with the News 6 app, available now in the App Store. When every minute matters, turn to News 6 for breaking news. Hey, so we want to make this easier for you. What's this? I'm talking about the news. Your can't miss, keeps you in the loop kind of news. It's important. Oh, and weather info that keeps your family safe. But you're busy, we know, so how about this? News 6 is streaming. That's right, here, and even here. Download the News 6 app and start streaming now.
It's really about getting the truth, trying to dig down and figure out how this story impacts you.
These stories matter not just to us, but to the entire community.
We want to make sure you have everything you need to know, that we answer all of your questions.
Now we're breaking down the whole story, what matters to you, and getting the answers you need.
Because that's what you need to know before you go to bed.
News 6 at 11.
The all-new News 6 app is here, and it has tons of new features, like a customizable home screen. See the stories that are important to you. Stream News 6 live. Comment instantly. Post your pics and videos. Watch exclusive content for News 6 insiders. Download or update the all-new News 6 app, available in your app store.
Hey, go to clickorlando.com and sign up to be an insider for exclusive content.
A reminder, power is expected to go out across the state and here in Central Florida. So to stay up to date with the latest from our wall-to-wall coverage and keep you and your family safe, when you can't watch News 6 on TV, keep a charged radio with you and our partners at FM 101.9, 105.9 Sunny FM, and Mix 105.1 will have our live continuous coverage on their air as well.
And if you can access the internet, we have several options for you. You can head to the App Store and search WKMG and download our Hurricane Tracker app, our Pinpoint Weather app, and the News 6 app to watch the latest updates in your area. You can also watch clickorlando.com and our coverage on the News 6 YouTube channel to keep you and your family safe. And our coverage of Hurricane Milton continues right after this break.
Whoa, what is happening?
We're packing up and taking our newscast on the road. So let's go.
Every month, we're going to be broadcasting from a different community.
Are we coming to your neighborhood?
To find out, go to clickorlando.com/hitstheroad now.
Sign up to be a News 6 insider at clickorlando.com/insider. Sign up for our News 6 insider newsletter at clickorlando.com. Subscribe to News 6's Strange Florida newsletter today at clickorlando.com/newsletters.
I'm so grateful. I thank you so much for everything that you're doing for me and my kids. There's still people in the world that has a heart.
Are you a legit News 6 viewer?
Oh, yes, every morning.
So when you need to get results, where do you turn?
News 6, of course.
Hey, News 6 insiders. Did you know you can log into your account on your phone and get all of our free exclusive contests and content? Just tap on the menu, then hit the gear icon to get to the login interface. Now tap login. It's all new on the News 6 app.
It's really about getting the truth, trying to dig down and figure out how this story impacts you.
We're breaking down exactly what's happening so you have the answers you need before you go to bed.
News 6 at 11.
Got something to say? Leave a comment in the all-new News 6 app. When every minute matters, News 6 is getting you all the facts and every detail that matters to you. For breaking news turned to News 6.
At News 6, you're going to hear us say getting results a lot. Getting results. It's our promise to you. At News 6, we believe in telling your stories, helping our community, and doing what's right. That's what getting results is all about.
The all-new News 6 app is here with a customizable home screen. No more scrolling endlessly looking for the news that's important to you. Because now you can customize the app to see the stories you want to see first. Give your thumbs a rest with the News 6 app, available now in the App Store. Pin it your best moments now when you download our updated News 6 app. Get all the theme park scoops with our In the Loop Theme Park Scoops newsletter.
Happening now, we are pinpointing the latest track of Hurricane Milton as the storm inches closer and closer to Central Florida. So we want to show you some dramatic video that's just come into the newsroom from DeLand Police. A police car driving behind another car when a tree fell on that first car. They say the driver of the car is okay, but the windshield got smacked. Wow. Yeah, an important reminder, and we've been saying this, just stay off the road.
Yes.
Conditions have become really dangerous, as you just saw. A curfew goes into effect in Volusia County at 8 o'clock, and we understand that Governor Ron DeSantis is giving an update right now, so let's listen in.
It's moving toward the northeast at 17 miles per hour, and it will continue to move across Central Florida throughout the night and into the early morning hours. We have seen a weakening of the storm over the last 24 hours. We also saw it sped up, which means it's hitting the Gulf Coast prior to high tide, which we hope will help mitigate some of the storm surge. You see it already developing, and there's going to continue to be storm surge both on the west coast and eventually on the east coast of Florida. And we're going to see a significant amount of rainfall on the northern part of the storm. There's already been 116 tornado warnings with 19 confirmed touchdowns throughout the state, 9 flash flood warnings, and 4 additional flood watches, with many, many more to come. Numerous counties have reported tornado damage. Peak storm surge is predicted to be between 5 and 13 feet, depending on where you are on the Gulf Coast of Florida. As of right now, the peak storm surge looks to be between the Charlotte-Lee County line up until Anna Maria Island in Manatee County. Prior to landfall, the state completed nearly 2,000 missions. Generators were sent to shelters. We have massive amounts of fuel reserves that are staged and ready to go, millions of gallons of gas. When the ports reopen, Florida Highway Patrol will be standing by to escort fuel trucks to service stations so that people will have access to fuel as they return to their homes. The Florida Department of Transportation is staged and ready to go as soon as the storm passes. They have 156 bridge inspectors, which will go to clear the bridges, 402 cut and toss personnel, and over 1,000 generators and 350 pieces of heavy equipment and trucks. We have massive amounts of search and rescue equipment and personnel standing by. And we hope that there's not a big need for that, but we're prepared for that. And that's not just our state and local, it's also our National Guard, our State Guard. We have about 9,000 National Guard personnel between Florida and other states. We also have Florida Highway Patrol, Fish and Wildlife, Department of Law Enforcement, and of course our Florida State Guard. There was a lot of questions about pre-staging linemen, which is our practice here in Florida, given that you have a lot of linemen working for Hurricane Helene in places like Georgia and North Carolina. I'm happy to report that we have over 50,000 linemen that are in the state of Florida, and as soon as it's safe to do so, they will commence with power restoration. We're already seeing power outages. You're going to continue to see a lot more power outages over the course of tonight and into tomorrow morning. Now, at this point, it's too dangerous to evacuate safely, so you have to shelter in place and just hunker down. Category 3 storm for most places in Florida, particularly newer construction, likely the building is going to be able to withstand it. But if you start to get in a situation where trees are snapping, power's popping, you do have to treat it like a tornado. And then if you are in a tornado warning, that's a duck and cover in a place that's safe in your structure. Those can be very, very dangerous, even if you are inside in cover. Stay inside and stay off the roads. Floodwaters and rushing storm surge are very dangerous. And I would say that's even more so in spite of everything the state did to help these local communities hit by Helene remove a lot of debris, and they did move a lot of debris over the last 72 hours. You're going to have new debris created, and you still have some of that old debris in some of those places. So there's going to be hazards in the storm surge and in the flood waters. stay put until the storm is passed. If you are in Sarasota, Manatee, some of those areas where the eye of the storm is going, it may be where things calm down for a minute. Just understand that means you're in the eye. It's going to go back and get really nasty very soon. So don't go outdoors until it is confirmed safe. You can listen to your local emergency management officials about that one. Power outages are going to happen, as I mentioned. So please, if you're using a generator, make sure that you're using it safely. Do not run the generator inside your home. That can be fatal. Make sure it's outside the home at a safe distance from windows and doorways. If you see dangerous conditions, please report those to your local authorities so that they can help protect people and mitigate it. So the storm is here. It's time for everybody to hunker down. I know we've got massive amounts of resources that have been prepared for this storm. People are tired because of having to deal with Hurricane Helene, and yet all I've seen is people just dig deep inside and say, we're not going to be denied, we're going to get the job done. So I really appreciate everybody that's worked so hard on the heels of Helene to prepare for this storm and to be ready to go. And you will see that in action very shortly as this storm passes. Okay, Kevin Guthrie.
Thank you, Governor, for leading us through this. Appreciate your support. Conditions across the state continue to deteriorate as Hurricane Milton approaches landfall on Florida's. No more Michael. No, sir. No, sir. As Hurricane Milton approaches landfall on Florida's west coast, many areas are already experiencing life-threatening storm surge or life-threatening tornadoes. Please make sure if a tornado warning comes in, especially on our east coast of Florida, we have certainly had a lot of tornadic activity over there with confirmed radar signature, confirmed tornadoes. We do have Virginia Task Force 1, Ohio Task Force 1, and Miami Task Force 1 going into those areas to help with those structural collapses that have happened. We're receiving somewhere in the neighborhood, this is really, really rough numbers right now, but about 125 homes that have been destroyed, most of them mobile homes in senior communities. So we're trying to get into Florida's most vulnerable to make sure they're taken care of. If you have not already left, as I just said, as the governor just said, you need to stay inside, stay safe, and stay put. Make sure that you're getting to a central area of your home, that you're getting as low as you possibly can. That is, if you have a single-story residence and no storm surge, you want to get as low as you possibly can. I had this question asked to me earlier. Do I go to the bottom of the house if I got storm surge? The answer is no. If you've got 2 floors, you need to go to the lowest part of the 2nd floor to escape the storm surge. Please do not. If you have storm surge coming in, please just do not go to the lowest level of your home. Do not attempt to leave your home or drive during the storm. Roads may be flooded, blocked by debris, or have down power lines. Please do not risk it. If you hear, as the governor said, if you hear trees snapping, that means that there is going to be flying debris. You should seek shelter immediately and treat it as if it's a tornado. Protect yourself from flying debris by putting household items such as pillows, heavy coats, blankets on top of you. There may be a point where you think the storm is over. If it goes from absolutely nothing or absolutely horrible and terrible to absolutely nothing, then you are most likely in the eye of the tornado. Please stay in place. Do not come out. We are anticipating power outages, as the governor's already mentioned, with this storm. Take time now, if you still have power, to keep those electronic devices plugged in and keep the charge full. If you lose power and are going to use a generator for backup power, please use it safely. You've heard the governor and myself say this. Keep it 20 feet away from the doors and windows of your home. Make sure you wait 20 minutes for it to cool down before you refuel it. Make sure it's on a clean, dry surface. And then be sure to have a carbon monoxide monitor in your home. After the storm has passed your area, it is critical that you listen to local authorities for guidance on when it is safe to go outside or to return home. Do not venture out. Hazardous materials, debris, and flooding could still be present. Do not attempt to clean up the debris by yourself, especially fallen trees or power lines. If you see a dangerous condition, please report them to your local authorities utilizing your 911 lines or non-emergency lines. Residents needing information can continue to call our State Assistance Information Line, which will be open for most likely weeks. That number is 1-800-342-3557. That's 1-800-342-3557. Please follow the agency on X and Instagram at FLSERT and on Facebook at FDEM. That is the best way to go and catch up on latest up-to-date information from the division. If you do not have access to that, but you have access to the internet, please make sure you go to floridadisaster.org/updates. Floridians, we are with you. We will be with you. The state of Florida is leading the way on this charge. Please know that we're coming as fast as we possibly can. There's going to be places that we just cannot get to until the winds die down. But as I've already mentioned, there are strong winds. There are banding rains. But we have the men and women of Florida Task Force 1 out of Miami-Dade, as well as members from the Ohio and Virginia Task Force going into harm's way to help you out. We will continue to do that all night long. I will be here throughout the night along with my team. Governor, it's been a pleasure working with you to this point, but I also want to say thank you for your leadership, and I know that you're not going to go anywhere anytime soon, and I appreciate your leadership. Thank you, sir.
So we are staged with massive amounts of search and rescue assets, not just with the cities and counties and their considerable resources, all the state assets for our state agencies and National Guard, as well as urban search and rescue teams. And so we will be ready to help people who are in harm's way, and hopefully we don't have a lot. I know a lot of people did heed the call to leave, but that will be a priority to save lives. We also have a record number of people there for the restoration of power. These linemen, people love seeing the linemen coming in on the interstate. It's a great sight. They will get to work, get their power resumed as quick as possible. And then we have massive amounts of fuel on standby that we can use, but we also want to make sure these ports get up and running. I mean, we'll see what the damage is to Manatee and to Tampa. We have been discussing, and Kevin and his team have been discussing with our federal partners like the Army Corps and some of these agencies, some expectations about getting these ports back. And I think there's a difference between kind of Florida expectations, which is like we get this stuff done quick, and maybe how the federal bureaucracies have typically worked. But I think
all right, you have been listening to Governor Ron DeSantis give an update to the state of Florida about what's happening with Hurricane Milton. Very telling. A 116 tornado warning so far, more than 24 of those here in Central Florida alone. And he says they have 19 confirmed touchdowns. And they are just getting ready for the storm surge is what he is most fearful of. 5 to 13 feet is what he is predicting.
That's right. He did say that the storm is weakening and it has sped up prior to making landfall, which is what we are waiting to happen within the next hour. Our team of meteorologists are here to make sure you are ready for whatever the storm may bring. And we are joined now by Chief Meteorologist Candace Campos, who is standing by. And so that eye wall is inching closer to the state of Florida. We have crews, of course, all across the state, pinpointing and watching exactly what's happening. When do we expect it to make landfall, Candace?
It could be happening within the next hour or so. Really, at the end of the day, the center of the eye has started to kind of widen. We're up to about 30 miles wide, but you can see already a big portion from Tampa down through Bradenton right now is dealing with that northern eye wall. We'll have a bit of a break as it moves into the center of that storm. But again, right now we are watching very closely. Eric Von Aken right now is in Sarasota. We, of course, will have live pictures from him in just a few moments. But this is the radar sites out of Tampa. You can see clearly that center of Milton now approaching the southwest coast there into Sarasota, Venice, into areas as far north as St. Petersburg. Now, notice something very interesting about this tropical system. Look at the southern side of it. Models did a fantastic job showing that the bulk of the moisture and all the rain was going to be very driven on the northern side of it. Unfortunately, all this rain that you're seeing wrapped around over the Gulf of Mexico, that's all got to go somewhere. And as Milton continues to cross over the state through parts of south central Florida, we are going to be continuing to see the bulk of this rain. So although all the tornado warnings we had, as Ginger mentioned, more than 24 tornado warnings here in central Florida in our local viewing area, we still have a long night to go, and we will be here throughout the entirety of it. Right now, again, just kind of closing in on Bayshore Gardens, kind of in this zone where Eric Von Aken is at. And one thing that he did notice and did mention right off the the start there. He's been through a lot of hurricanes over the last several years. Won't say how many years, but certainly an interesting phenomenon is happening right now where he's kind of in that eye wall, but he's not seeing as much rain as he typically does. So here's the latest track as of 7 p.m. We should get that intermediate advisory at 8. Again, still a Category 3 hurricane with sustained winds of 120 miles per hour. Still anticipated to weaken and broaden. And as it broadens out, tropical storm force winds will be sustained across most of Central Florida. Hurricane force gusts cannot be ruled out. With right around the core of Milton, we will have that potential of seeing hurricane sustained winds through areas of Osceola, Polk County, and into Brevard County as well. The problem right now that we are looking at, no big tornado threat as of right now, but the concern is going to be those flash flood warnings. We are racking up a lot of rain in a short amount of time. Look at those wave heights right now, really starting to push all that water up against the southwest. The storm surge is going to be a big concern right now. Sea is about 13 to 18 feet just offshore. Now, the worst of the storm surge is going to be on the right side of Milton. So as it approaches the Bradenton-Sarasota zone, this is where we are going to see kind of the worst case scenario here. Up to 12-foot storm surge can be expected from Sarasota southward down through the Port Charlotte area. Wind gusts right now are whipping across southwest Florida. Right now we have sustained winds of 56 miles per hour in Siesta Key, kind of the closest to that center. But up and down from St. Petersburg right now we have gusts up to 74. Areas in Port Charlotte right now, even a few miles south and east of that. Port Charlotte right now seeing a wind gust of 85 miles per hour. Remember, we're always going to have the worst of the winds on the right side, that dirty side of that storm. So that is why the winds are the worst right now in Port Charlotte versus north in St. Petersburg, where the winds still kicking up at about 74 miles per hour. Interesting enough, there is a very rare warning right now in effect for parts of Tampa as well as St. Petersburg. With more on that, meteorologist America Keenis is talking more on that. We had to go deep into the system to find something this rare.
Absolutely. So this is not your typical wind warning, but we have an extreme wind warning that we do see. We saw one issued during Helene. Now we're seeing one issued during Milton. And you see this highlighted area in this hot pink. And that does include the cities of Tampa all the way down to Bradenton and possibly just before Sarasota is where it kind of cuts off. That's where we could see sustained winds, surface winds exceeding that 115 mile per hour mark. So definitely a very dangerous situation to be in with that eye wall pushing on shore. So as we take a look here at the expected wind gusts, you'll notice that highlighted pink area. Once again, we went ahead and kind of pushed it out a little bit because we could continue to see wind gusts up near 100 miles per hour or greater, even as the system makes its way onshore, just because it is, again, on that dirty side of the storm. So, and then you'll notice the areas in the red here. So that extends from, I would say, Holiday going back up to Spring Hill and then across just on the south side of the City Beautiful going into Osceola County, and then from northernmost Brevard going all the way down. That's where we could see wind gusts 75 to 100 miles per hour, okay? But then back to the north, so Orlando and areas to the north, 55 to 75 mile per hour wind gusts. Now, the thing is, you're probably saying, hey, those are really strong, and yes, they will be strong for the next several hours as Milton continues to pass by. So when we look at the overall setup in terms of rain, that's what we started our day with. We started it early this morning and even late last night with light showers, then they've gradually picked up. Those bands of heavy rain started to move in, and those dangerous squalls really triggered quite a bit of tornado warnings for Central Florida already, and we still have potential to see those as we head into the overnight hours. But as far as rainfall totals in the past 6 hours, you can see just around, I would say, Osceola, just to the north and east of the Turnpike, going back into the east side of Orlando, right before you get to that 528 exchange with, or to exchange with I-95, and then spreading back into Seminole County between about 3 and almost 5 inches of rain accumulating there. We got about almost 4 inches over Merritt Island. And then you'll look back and you'll see not so much rain across our northern half. That's not going to be the case because we saw where on that spinning motion all of that moisture is, and it is on the northern side of this storm. We have that dry air really kind of cutting down a lot of the rainfall on the southern half, but that doesn't mean we can still see some wraparound, so we're not quite done with the rain just yet, and we'll definitely continue to see more really adding up from Orlando going up to the north. So when we talk about what to expect, and we could see isolated maximums up near 11 and even 13 inches of rain. We already had quite quite a bit of rain today. Plus, we started out the month with a good amount of rain. And when we look across the I-4 corridor, between about 4 and up to 8 inches, but we could see isolated maximums in the 10 to 12 inch range. Back to the west, so Sumter Lake County going back into Marion County, 5 to 7 inches is quite possible. Lakeland, about 8.5, and then you'll notice Brevard County already getting up there in those rainfall totals, but we're still not done. Anywhere between about 6 and probably up to 8 inches of rain, possibly higher. Cocoa Beach for Cape Canaveral, maybe in that 10 inch or even greater mark. Ladies?
All right, Samara, thank you. And you pointed out that highlighted pink area, and that's what the governor was talking about from Charlotte to Anna Maria Island, where they are expecting the most storm surge to hit 5 to 13 feet potentially. Our Eric Von Enken has been in that very area. We're talking about the Sarasota area all for the past couple of days, really, 48 hours or more, keeping an eye on things for us. Eric, it looks like that eye is getting closer to you.
We know it's coming, Lisa. What is a little bit surprising is the storm surge has not verified here yet. That's not to say it's not coming, but, you know, this is, I guess, part of the false sense of security that people fall into. So here we are, just that storm a few dozen miles off the coast here. Yeah, the wind has picked up, but Candace, you mentioned the rain calming down, I guess because we're in a drier area. The drier air has moved in here. We're not getting soaked. And so far, downtown Sarasota is holding up relatively fine. So again, I'm on floating piers here. Jeff, can you see the piling? Big cinder block piling, or cement piling anyway. And there are rollers on these things, and that's why these things keep moving up and down. We've still got plenty of room. Again, so our two indicators here of how high the water level is coming is how much are these piers, these docks, moving up on these pilings, and also over there, I told you that's Bayfront Park. So typically that's just a foot or two above the water level here, again, depending on tide going in and out. But so far, it has not come over the bayfront, and so far we're not seeing much movement up. We're seeing up and down, but again, we are not rising here. Boats are still hanging on, in some cases for dear life. Jeff, can you see that yacht over there, the one that's lit up? There, you cannot. Okay. There's a yacht to my right, and it's the only one with lights on, and we just figured out why. It's because the person on the yacht is going to ride it out, as are so many people here in downtown Sarasota. Again, you see the building over there, so that's the one, that I guess probably the one that is closest and sticking out furthest into Sarasota Bay here, and you see there are still several floors where there are lights on. People are choosing to ride this out. Some of them, a few of them on the mainland, but everybody, for the most part, has left the barrier islands because they know the chances would not be good with surviving 15 or 14 feet of storm surge. Lisa, back to you.
All right,
Yeah.
Eric, thank you.
We
know that
I'm just saying that the yacht, you can't, but the person in the yacht probably thinks it's a really good idea to do whatever they're doing since they're staying there. Thank you, Eric. Be safe.
Well, power is expected to go out across Central Florida, and you still have several options to continue to get our coverage, of course, online on clickorlando.com, the News 6 YouTube app, and we're also going to be on several local radio stations. We're
simulcasting.
That's right.
And that's the one thing. If you lose us on air, and lights are flickering in here too, that makes me a little nervous. If you lose us on air, you can also catch us on our radio partners. I think we have a full screen to show you those radio partners, but make sure you have everything charged up just so you can still stay connected, because even if you can't see us give you the advice, you can hear us talk you through this storm, because we're going to be here with you through the duration of Hurricane Milton as it makes landfall.
We'll be on 101.9, 105.9 Sunny FM, and Mix 105.1, and of course online. And we'll be back right after this break.
Stay with us.
Tired of living paycheck to paycheck? Tune into the Black Men Sundays podcast. Hear real conversations from African-American financial experts and discover key techniques to make your money work for you. Black Men Sundays, every Sunday on clickorlando.com. Clickorlando.com is the #1 website in Central Florida and best local TV news website in the U.S. Log into your account on your phone and get all of our exclusive content with the News 6 app.
It's really about getting the truth, trying to dig down and figure out how this story impacts you.
These stories matter not just to us, but to the entire community.
We want to make sure you have everything you need to know, that we answer all of your questions.
And we're breaking down the whole story, what matters to you, and getting the answers you want.
Because that's what you need to know before you go to bed.
News 6 at 11.
At News 6, you can see the commitment to breaking news. We don't stop until everything you need to know has been uncovered. We're taking you places no one else can go, so you can really see what's happening. We do this for you. Breaking news on News 6.
Pin it your best moments now when you download our updated News 6 app. When every minute matters, News 6 is getting you all the facts and every detail that matters to you. For breaking news turned to News 6. Subscribe to News 6's Strange Florida newsletter on clickorlando.com.
Hey, go to clickorlando.com and sign up to be an insider for exclusive content.
At News 6, you're going to hear us say getting results a lot. But here's what you should know. Getting results. It's our promise to you to unite a community together in a time of need.
There's some good peoples out there.
To right the wrong.
It gives you the feel-goods again that someone's willing to help out.
To hold the powerful accountable.
We want to talk to you about texting and driving. You were the one no vote.
At News 6, we believe in telling your stories, helping our community, and doing what's right. That's what getting results is all about.
Contact the Channel 6. We've got almost every dollar back. I sure appreciate you being there when I need you.
News 6 is streaming. Download the News 6 app and start streaming now. Be the first to find out about contests when we drop exclusive content, daily articles, and more. Get the most out of News 6 with our News 6 Insider newsletter. Sign up to be an insider today at clickorlando.com/insider.
Exclusive deals, news, it's just a great way to know a little bit more beyond the newscast.
Get all the theme park scoops with our In the Loop Theme Park Scoops newsletter.
All right, welcome back, everyone, as we continue our coverage of Hurricane Milton. I'm Ginger Gadsden.
And I'm Lisa Bell. And of course, the storm about an hour away now from making landfall along Florida's Gulf Coast. We have our team of meteorologists standing by who have been helping us pinpoint the storm, walk us through all the details all night long. And not just all night. They've been here for, for days
a couple
now.
of nights. Yeah, exactly. And it's just really getting started because we haven't seen it make landfall yet. And that's coming probably, according to Chief Meteorologist Candace Campos, in the next hour or so. And speaking of Candace, we want to get right over to her right now to talk about Hurricane Milton. It is a Category 3 right now. Is that right?
Yes. Right now we're waiting for that 8 o'clock advisory. So Julie, you hop in the moment we hear any news. Again, as of right now, we are watching Hurricane Milton. That the center of the storm, the eye. It's just about to approach. So yeah, I would say within the next 30 to 45 minutes already, this has really started to gain some fast moving forward speed, which is not a bad thing because the faster we can get this storm in and out, the better it's going to be, especially for us. Because notice the difference between the north side and the south side of this core. The north side is packing all the rain, where the southern end of it, there is barely any rain. Now, there's tons of cloud cover. There's no doubt about that. But the moisture is just eroding that dry air, sucking into the southern end, the southern fringe of the storm, is really eroding all that moisture and all that precipitation. And we're going to get a real better picture of what it looks like right there along the southwest coast of Florida as we continue into the next few minutes here with Eric Von Aken out there. Back here at home, though, we do have several aerial flood, flash flood warnings in effect. Flash flood warnings meaning that we are already starting to get reports of flooding in the area, especially after a very active afternoon, which is what we were concerned about with all those tornado warnings. We do have some reports of damage in some areas in Brevard County. We are working to confirm all that. We have our crews spread out all across East Central Florida. So the moment we get any information on that, we will bring it to you. But you can see a lot of that heavy rain right now. Yes, I'm sorry? We have the 8 o'clock advisory now. Okay, we do have the 8 o'clock advisory. Okay, good, thank you. We're going to continue to see some of the heaviest of the rain. What's the sustained winds at this point?
120.
Okay.
And pressure's 954.
Okay, so it is starting to weaken. That's obvious when we're starting to talk about how much is already interacting with land. It's certainly not a surprise. It is moving pretty quick. Has it increased forward speed?
East-northeast 15, so
okay. So
slow
it's
down a tiny bit, but still on a good clip.
Yeah, certainly on a good clip. And of course, all this heavy rain across areas, thank you, Julie, from the areas of Sumter and Lake County, seeing some of the heaviest of the rain. Now, this is the problem right now that I see for us here in Central Florida. We are in a bit of a break, which is certainly good news. This is not the time to now go visit friends and family members, whatever the case may be. This is still the time that we still need to be where we need to be throughout the entirety of the storm, because all of the rain that is right now to our west and out towards the Gulf of Mexico, all of that needs to go across the state. So with that being said, that was going to be the problem. Even though the right side tends to be the dirty side of the storm, in this case, it's the left side of the storm that's going to be bringing in quite a lot of rain. Look at our wind gusts right now. Of course, again, Milton still just offshore or approaching that eye wall across southwest Florida. Right now, we are clocking a wind gust of 49 miles per hour in Orlando, 54 in Sanford. Now, again, we weren't expecting the wind event to happen just yet. That is going to be expected as Milton crosses central Florida, moving over Polk County into Osceola, Brevard County late tonight, early tomorrow morning. So again, we had that severe weather risk that we have completed, and now we are moving on to more of the rainfall concern. As Milton continues to push through Central Florida overnight, look where all the rain is going to go. It is going to be a soaking event when we talk about how much rain is expected as we continue to watch Milton make its way through, almost lining up along I-4. Barron's taking it a little further north. Models as of now, according to the National Hurricane Center, showing more of it emerging out into the Atlantic, out of northern Brevard County. But of course, we're going to continue to fluctuate. There's going to be a lot of wobbling as it continues to move through parts of Central Florida. But just overall, just look at how much rain is going to be on the northern fringe of it. So areas of Osceola County, Brevard, you might see relatively drier conditions. The problem there in Osceola and Brevard is going to be just how much wind we are expecting to see within this system. Okay, once again, here is the radar. We are watching very closely as the, again, official landfall happens when the center of the eye crosses land. So that is something we are going to be watching very closely. But as of right now, we do have a big old strip right here that is producing some very, very high wind rates right now. Right now through Bayshore Gardens, we had one kind of big batch of rain before that eye wall came through, but this is basically what we're seeing. It's just kind of that lighter scattered showers on the southern fringe of areas like Sarasota. This is a very rare kind of warning. We actually didn't have it in our system. We had to call and actually get it imported in. This is extreme wind warning. This is something that is issued when we do have surface winds actually exceeding 100 to 115 miles per hour. And that is something that is certainly going to be likely as that main system pushes into parts of Longboat Key through St. Petersburg, Tampa. All these areas here will have that potential of seeing that extreme wind warning. That's in effect until 9:30 there. Again, we are watching the potential for the storm surge even along parts of the Gulf Coast. And then out towards the East Coast beaches, also talking about storm surge about 3 to 6 feet. So let's go a little bit more into depth on what we're talking about. Julie, over there, what are you talking about? You're talking about the forecast cone.
Right. Since, it came out while you were already up, this is what we're looking at. That 8 o'clock update just came out. Now, starting around 9 this morning, we started getting hourly position updates. So again, this is what we're looking at as of 8 o'clock. We're looking at winds at 120 miles per hour, still a major storm, 950 millibars. So the pressure's come up a little bit. But again, we are still talking about an intense storm. East-northeast movement at 15 miles per hour. And as Candace was showing us on the satellite imagery and the radar imagery, already that eye wall is moving onshore. Now, again, we want to show you what we're expecting. So this should be over land. Milton should be over land about 12 hours. She was just showing us on the Barron model, the in-house model, Milton exiting our East Coast by around 7, 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Notice we're still talking about tomorrow morning at 2 o'clock, 90 mile per hour winds as this cuts right across across central Florida. So again, a lot of that heavy rain is to the north. And the reason is we were talking about Milton would weaken before it made landfall because of upper level shear as well as dry air aloft. So that some of that dry air wrapped into the southern part of the system, and that kind of eroded the rain off to the south of that. So that means those of you to the north, really to Orlando and north, that's where we're going to see the bulk of that rain. Now, here's what we're talking about as far as wind gusts. Candace was showing you that extreme wind advisory graphic that we didn't even have in the system. So right now we're talking about winds gusting to 79 miles per hour at Siesta Key. Tampa is seeing 67 mile per hour wind gusts right now. St. Petersburg up to 75. Look, Port Charlotte, winds are gusting now to 93 miles per hour, 69 in Fort Myers, also 69 in Fort Myers Beach. And again, that wind field will continue to expand across central Florida. Here's what we're expecting. So for our friends in Marion County, Flagler County, Volusia County, the northern half of Lake County, northern Sumter County, and much of Orange County and over into northern Brevard County, Volusia County as well. You're talking about sustained winds at 50 to 75 miles per hour. Again, some higher gusts. Now, this area where you see the red and the pink, notice over into Lakeland, that's where you could see 100 mile per hour or greater wind gusts. Again, we are going to continue tracking the situation as Milton appears to begin making landfall. Now we will send it back to Lisa and Ginger.
All right. Julie, thank you. Of course, we're keeping a close eye on Hurricane Milton, and it is close to making landfall. Chief Meteorologist Candace Campos says probably in this hour we might see it come ashore.
Yeah, and News 6's Eric Von Enken joins us once again live from Sarasota, where we have seen the conditions there deteriorate as expected. But although, as I'm looking at you now, Eric, it actually looks like it's not as windy as it was when we last checked in with you.
So, ladies, was just listening to David Nazario and Candace. Also, it seems that we are now in the forward end of the eye because I got my hood off. I mean, it's not even really windy right now. A little bit. I mean, I don't want to downplay it too much, but remember all of the rocking and rolling we had here earlier? All of these sailboats here? Definitely calmer than it was just a few minutes ago. So again, these are the piers that move up and down. I mean, there's a little bit of movement. We were definitely seeing some of these boats, as big as they are, yachts, I guess, getting knocked around, but it is definitely at a decreased level compared to what we saw even the last time, what was that, 15 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago that we saw you. Seeing more transformers blow, but still, take a look at downtown Sarasota here. For the most part, the lights are still on. Now, that's not to say that things aren't going to change, but you can see, I mean, I can't find any buildings in front of me, at least here in the immediate area by the Sarasota Bayfront downtown, that does not currently have power. The other thing we've been talking so much about is the storm surge. So 14, 15 feet of storm surge. The governor was just talking about that. Again, that would lift this dock, this pier, up over this big concrete piling. You can see, we're wobbling a little bit. But again, so far, no noticeable change in water elevation here in the bay. Now, down there, as I've been telling you, so that's where the Gulf of Mexico is. And what's unique about this spot here in downtown Sarasota is the bay has a direct channel straight out into the Gulf. So that Gulf water, the ocean water, is flowing right in here, and that was the expectation. And there are several parts, obviously, along the barrier islands, but right here, straight out, almost straight out, is the Gulf, and so the expectation was supposed to be that the storm surge, and I'm not saying again, look, this is still early, right? The eye wall, it seems barely has just made it onshore to where we are here. But so far, the storm surge has not rolled in here like we expected. We know that there are other parts of the barrier islands here up and down. So again, setting the scene for you, Sarasota County, north, Bradenton, that name has come up a lot because we know people got wrecked there from Hurricane Helene. And also, barrier islands there. Farther north, St. Pete Beach, Clearwater Beach, Pinellas County, so many of those barrier islands, and so many of those places were underwater. So all of the barrier islands have been evacuated because the concern is, of course, they are the ones right up against the edge of the Gulf. And so as soon as this thing picked up and started to get bad, they would have been the ones hit first. And then, because this is such a powerful storm, the water would roll ashore here to the inland areas. So downtown Sarasota, which you're looking at right there, the warning, and the reason that they evacuated the front here of the bayfront and the front of the downtown area, like the other cities up the coast. In fact, we're supposed to have a hotel reservation in downtown Bradenton, where Jeff and I have broadcast before during several previous hurricanes, and that hotel right along the Manatee River has always stayed open. This was the first time that they actually canceled the reservation. They said, no, we're in an evacuation zone. And because of this predicted storm surge, we do expect that this time we are going to be underwater. So again, this whole area, anywhere near the water, from here all the way up to Hillsborough and Pinellas County, is under a mandatory evacuation zone. That doesn't mean that people aren't choosing to stay. Again, look at the condos starting on the right. Jeff, I don't know how far you can get to the right, but there's this entire row of these high-rises right along the bayfront here. Lights are still on, and the one in front of us, directly in front of us, that seems to be the only one where there's no lights on. But all the others, look to the building, the big wide building, Jeff, just to the left of the skinny one there. I mean, I'm counting 15, lights on. To the left, another 10 lights on. If you keep going, I mean, there are definitely people here who have chosen to stay. Remember, I had a conversation last night with the Sarasota Police Department because they had blocked off the entrances to the barrier islands. They weren't letting anybody go across. And all they can do, and we talk so much about this, all they can do is say, please, we need you to leave. Your life is in danger. Again, there were examples in Tampa where they would go door to door, especially on the islands there, and Pinellas specifically, where they were knocking and saying, we think you're not going to make this if you stay. And still, people have the option to stay. Well, it's now well into the storm where we have seen no emergency vehicles on the roads here, because the danger always is if it's unsafe for the rescuers who do the rescuing, they're not going to get out on the road, because then tomorrow, when things start, damage assessments start happening, rescues are necessary. Those are the folks we need to be able to come and get the people who have decided to stay. So they're not on the road anymore. I have not seen a car for a long time now. But the situation is the police department is saying, please leave, and still people can choose to stay. And so I asked the police department last night, the officers, specifically, do you know of people who have done that, at least out on the barrier islands? And the answer was, the officer didn't know people firsthand, but he said, I am sure that some people have decided to ride it out. So far, again, storm surge has not verified here in downtown Sarasota. That doesn't mean it's not coming. We do, though, expect it to be a very different story out on the barrier island, which, again, we cannot get to, and it is going to be closed until the damage crews assess what actually happened to the island and how bad it got. And, of course, we still have the other half of this storm to get through. So what's happening right now? Again, we seem to be right in the eye. I don't even have my hood up. Wind has definitely died down. What's going to happen once the eye moves through here, as it moves east and north towards central Florida? We don't know. Certainly we're expecting, once the calmness of the eye passes over us, for it to get tough again, like you saw us, when we talked to you about 20 minutes ago or so. So people bracing for that, expecting the worst, what has been projected and what has been predicted. But as of right now, guys, we will certainly take this calm in literally what appears to be the eye of the storm.
Yeah, that is fantastic. And it seems like you might be in a spot that could possibly be spared the worst when it comes to storm surge. Chief Meteorologist Candace Campos was explaining why you might not get that 5 to 13 feet surge that other places might get.
We had a couple of questions. First, it's the National Hurricane Center who will officially make the declaration when the storm makes landfall.
Yeah, there's no doubt that Eric right now is in that eye. It's a very, very weird phenomenon because all of a sudden the winds will be whipping like we saw just a few minutes ago, and then now it's just like a normal breezy afternoon.
And you say he's on the northern side of the eye.
Yes.
The storm's going in a counterclockwise motion. As a result, areas to the south of him will see that storm surge.
Correct.
Like the Port Charlotte area. But as a result, as it moves across the state and continues in that counterclockwise motion, areas to the north of the eye on the eastern side of Florida are going to see the worst storm surge.
And that's really going to be kind of the difference of the two coasts, right?
Yeah.
So right now where Eric is, a lot of that water is actually getting pulled away from the shore. So that's the reason why
and then churned around.
He's kind of it's kind of
It's almost like
surprising.
he's changed locations from the last time.
Right.
That's what it seems like. But unfortunately, just a few miles south of you there, Eric, the storm surge is going to be a completely different story. So I mean, of course, it's still too early to say it, but as of right now, if you haven't seen at least a rise in that storm surge yet, I think this might be kind of on that northern fringe of it.
And as a result, though, when we're talking about areas along the east coast of Florida, where Volusia and Flagler County could see greater storm surge than counties to the south, like Brevard or even south of there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and Eric, have you been noticing that almost like the water levels are almost going down slightly? It's not going to be dramatic, like sucking the water out of Tampa Bay.
That seems like a tsunami type situation.
Although I do have a friend who lives in Yankeetown, which is an area where I go scalloping every year, and he was posting pictures earlier of what appeared to be a lot of water leaving the bay.
It's a weird phenomenon.
Are you seeing that, Eric?
We were thinking of that because that happened in the last storm that we covered. In fact, here on the west coast of Florida, where the water dropped dramatically in the bay. So that was in Bradenton, right in the city center, downtown Manatee County, or downtown Bradenton in Manatee County. That hasn't happened. I mean, ladies, the water level has not changed really at all. I mean, I don't know if you remember, I was standing next to this concrete piling several times over the past few hours, and the last estimate was that this was about 10 feet tall. And again, remember, we were talking about what this would take to lift up over this and go floating, and that would be major storm surge here, right? But I mean, the height of this hasn't changed. It hasn't gone down. It hasn't gone up. So, Candace, what you just said, if it hasn't happened yet, it's likely not going to happen here. I wish the people of this area here on the Sun Coast could hear that, because, man, I would imagine that would bring them incredible relief. But to be clear, I know it's not over yet, and they know it's not over yet.
Absolutely. By the way, a big area of that zone there from Tampa down through Bradenton, they are under a very rare excessive wind warning that we could have surface winds up to 115 miles per hour. Because at the end of the day, Eric, you are literally smack in the middle right now of a Category 3 hurricane at this point.
Okay, so we're being told that these are live pictures now from Bradenton, and it seems to be a little bit of a different story from where Eric is right now, because you can see the wind is definitely picked up, and you see some it's raining sideways there a little bit, and this is what you're going to continue to see conditions deteriorate throughout the evening.
Just north there, that's just north of where Eric is, and they're seeing right now the kind of the border of that eye wall. So where Eric already cleared the eye wall, he's really kind of in that center, which is why the winds almost die down.
Clear center.
That clear center, which is dangerous.
If it were during the daytime, he could potentially look up and see blue sky.
Absolutely.
I have a question for Eric, because I've been using this as my barometer for your live shots with Jeff tonight. There is a little palm tree that has been hanging on for dear life, and it was just blowing and blowing. I would imagine now that it's pretty calm, but when we check back with you later on, it might not be so.
So, Ginger, we switched positions here, and we talk a lot about this. So Jeff and I have done this once or twice, or I don't know,
or 30 times,
or so. But look, I always want to take a minute to explain that in all seriousness, we spend a good amount of time scouting out where we're going to be, right? Because I'd like to go home to my wife and my kids, and I know Jeff would too. So, we try and pick an area that we're protected by a solid concrete building. And that's where Jeff is right now. There's a roof over him. And the wall in this building ends right over here. So, Ginger, your palm tree that you're talking about, the reason I tell you this is because Jeff can't pan around because we wanted to show you the downtown bayfront here. The palm tree, Ginger, is off to my right. And would you believe it? It's fine. I mean, it's still standing upright. And again, like this is unnervingly baffling, a little bit positive for me because, again, we're in the middle, according to you guys, because you got the radar up. I'm just a schmuck standing on a dock here. But we're in the middle of this, right? And so far, I mean, Jeff and I have we've covered Category 3s before, and this hasn't felt like that, again, so far, and I'm being really careful when I say that because, we've seen the tornado warnings that you had and the tornadoes that actually touched down, and we know that there are a lot of people hurting from this storm who have gotten hurt, who've gotten flooded, who've gotten wind damage, and we know especially people up and down this coast, Southwest Florida, they really got hit by Helene just 2 weeks ago. They're still suffering, and so if this is any relief to them, guys, if they can say at least, it seems like we're making it through where we are here. I mean, amen. I'll take that all day long because I do know that there's people north and south of us that really are getting nailed right now. Like you were talking about the live pictures from Bradenton, which is only, 20 miles north of where I'm standing at this moment.
And Eric, I just want to kind of show you because, I know you can't visually see this, but again, you're here in Sarasota. Bradenton is just to the north of it. I just advanced. Julie, if you can bring it back to me here real quick. We are looking at the potential for that eye, kind of the backside of that eye to actually move into you. So there will be that potential of kind of kicking up a little more wind, which is why they still have that warning in place, that excessive wind warning, Eric. So there again, here, thank you, Julie. Again, this is kind of the main center where we are watching where Eric is right about here. So the official landfall is going to be any moment now because it's basically when that center of the eye crosses the shoreline. So this is the reason why I'm talking about how the storm surge and the winds might not be as bad. This is a very kind of unique system here, Eric, that we're going to continue to see a lot of the worst of the wind and the rain north of that because we're starting to see so much dry air getting sucked up from the south side of it. That's why you're not seeing as much rain. Now, the wind is because you're right there in the middle, that big center of the eye of Milton at this point in time. Now, you are going to get a little more rain kind of whipped around, kind of on the backside as Milton starts clearing and pushing out towards your east. But again, I don't want people at home seeing Eric and they're like, well, he was in the eye, well, it wasn't that bad. But look what's to the north of that. Again, we are talking about a very different tropical system. The way that this system is kind of stacked up, it's very unique in that type of way because, as Eric was saying, he wasn't seeing all the tornado warnings that we were, but we were still 100, 150 miles away from the center versus what you've been experiencing so far today. Have you been seeing any big-time warnings in place for the last couple of hours?
Again, ladies, surprisingly, no. And that's why this feels a little bit strange here. When we talked about where to go to cover this storm, to bring everybody in Central Florida these live pictures of this hurricane coming ashore, we narrowed it down, obviously, to Southwest Florida, the Gulf Coast area, anywhere between Clearwater and even Fort Myers and Naples, and we kind of settled on Sarasota because it seemed that so many of those models were aligning here. It so far hasn't done, the first half anyway, hasn't done nearly what you guys saw, right? So all of those tornado warnings, and we saw some of the video, I think it was from South Florida on the East Coast of the one spinning over the highway, right? We haven't even had a single tornado warning in this area all day long, and so far not all night. Now again, I'm being careful with this because, like you say, as soon as this eye wall moves through where we are, I know it's going to get rough again because, that's the other half of the storm. But Candace, if you're saying the worst is over, at least when it comes to storm surge, at least for this area, we'll take that all day. Now, we're worried about what it's going to do to Central Florida as it continues to move through. Are you going to see those more tornadoes?
Yeah, and Eric, that was exactly the question that I had for you. So we're, very thankful that where you are not seeing major impacts at this moment. But we did have 116 tornado warnings, 19 touchdowns reported, including some here in Central Florida. And on clickorlando.com, we do have some pictures of some damage that took place in Cocoa. As many as 8 buildings, possibly some homes sustaining damage there. When you look at those pictures and you see the roofs,
devastating.
It is devastating for those people. So that all happened basically around 2 o'clock this afternoon and was going on all afternoon. Do you anticipate that type of activity to happen through the night? I know there's always the chance,
of course,
but when we're talking about 119 warnings, really within a matter of a few hours.
Well, it's layered, right? It's a layered approach with this system for us here in Central Florida. That's going to be different than where Sarasota, where Eric Von Aiken is. We had the severe risk. That was high.
That was before the arrival,
That was well before. But that's the reason why we told everyone shelter in place by noon today.
I got here at 1 o'clock because you said so.
And then what happened? 1:30 o'clock.
It opened up,
we were nonstop. Yeah. Now we're talking the rainfall. All of that rain that Eric is not seeing is all shifted north. So all of that rain needs to cross the state because remember, Milton still needs to go through our southern zones here throughout the next couple of hours. So now the next question is going to be how much rain are we going to get? Models are picking up double digits in some spots, especially along the I-4 corridor. Then we're talking, this is Punta Gorda. This is a live look from Punta Gorda. But then here locally, after we get the rain, now we're going to get that core of Milton coming through.
Yeah.
And then to finish it off, it's the storm surge. So there could be the potential that we here on the East Coast could see storm surge worse than where they're looking at right now.
So for people who aren't familiar of where this is Punta Gorda, which is south of where Eric was. He was in Sarasota. This is also a little bit south of Port Charlotte, which is where we are expecting greater storm surge to take place. And it does look like you can see water rushing in there. And this is from Bradenton, which is
not far from where Eric is.
So
right
notice,
now.
North of where he is, it's raining. South of where he is, it's really not. Again, this is a north heavy storm. And the way it's stacked up, it's a wonky storm. And it's been a wonky storm from the day it was born.
Okay, so I have a question for you. I heard meteorologist Julie Broughton say this. It could be a 12-hour event before Milton crosses the entire state and exits. What does 12 hours, that's a long time to cross anywhere.
Right.
What is that going to look like?
A lot of rain. That's why we got those flash flood warnings in effect, because already just with the one band that spiraled up all those tornado warnings already produced 3, 4, 5 inches of rainfall already in some locations.
But historically speaking, the governor said the storm has sped up. So is this a fast-moving storm, or is this something that's going to park over on top of us?
I'm happy to hear that it's a fast-moving storm because our big concern here in Central Florida is the rain, where south of this is going to be the wind. So selfishly here in Central Florida, the faster the storm goes through, the better it's going to be for our flooding concern. And there's a lot of Central Floridians who are really worried about the flooding. That's been their big takeaways of why they're getting all those sandbags.
Okay, so last time when we had Helene and we talked about Helene, I heard the governor say Helene is a water event. What kind of event is Milton?
A wonky event. Honestly, because again, the southern side is the wind. We were talking about the dynamics. This is a mid-October kind of storm. So it's almost starting to take on extratropical characteristics, meaning that the core doesn't look as typically tropical as usual. And that's the reason why we've had that big surge of dry air coming in from the south. That's why we have that wind shear that created all those tornadoes from the north. It's just, there's a different dynamics going on around Milton, which is why computer models were kind of doing that slight wobble late last night. And at the end of the day, those computer models kind of fixed themselves, and that's why that arrival will be somewhere in and around pretty close to where Eric is, that official landfall.
So you're talking about, you said upper level shear and dry air aloft. Has that weakened it any?
That's what has helped it weaken from a Category 5, where it was top 5 strongest intensity here.
National Hurricane Center.
They did it?
Now updating.
Okay.
Extremely dangerous Category 3 Hurricane Milton making landfall near Siesta Key, Florida.
There it is, okay.
and still saying to expect life-threatening storm surge, extreme wind, flash flooding occurring over the Central Florida Peninsula. So now it is official. Siesta Key, right not too far from where our Eric Von Inken was. Siesta Key, a place that so many of us.
Is Eric still up, by the way? I would imagine that he's still up, and I don't know if his
he's listening to us chat.
Yeah, and Eric, I'm sure you've been to Siesta Key before. So many people in Central Florida and in the state have visited that area. It is a beautiful, beloved area, and that is where the National Hurricane Center has announced that it made landfall.
They're actually saying it's only 5 miles west of Sarasota. So that's how close Eric is the official landfall.
And throughout this entire storm, our entire team of meteorologists have been talking about how compact this whole storm has been, unlike Helene, which had such a wide area.
It's starting to widen now that it weakens. Think of like an ice skater. The tighter the skater is, the faster it goes.
Yeah.
So when the skater opens up its arms, that's when things start to weaken, and that's what we're starting to see. That's why the wind field has expanded so far.
So Milton's
ahead of
arms are expanding a little bit.
Exactly.
All right. Eric, can you still hear us, and what are conditions like right now that it's made landfall, according to the National Hurricane Center, and not far from where you are?
I can still hear you all, and conditions have not changed. If anything, it's sprinkling now, just slightly. I mean, ever so slightly. We're not getting soaked. Wind has not picked up. It is still eerily calm. And again, just the fact that, I mean, you can see the buildings behind me, just the fact that the power is still on here shows you that so far we haven't gotten rocked as bad as I think most people thought we would. And again, I know there's a second half of the storm moving through, but so far the eye hasn't exited this area because nothing has changed, right? We know that once the eye wall moves through, we're going to get the back half of all that wind, and I know there is some rain. Candace was talking about on the other side of it, but again, at this point, no change. It is eerily calm and eerily quiet and eerie to be in the eye wall of a Category 3 right now, and nothing around me is proving that to be the case.
Eric, I think one of the people who is the luckiest person, if you ever get to meet who owns that boat right there, and seeing it in those calm waters right now when it could have been a different situation, because I think I remember you and
a couple hurricanes ago,
you were
saving someone from a boat.
Oh my gosh,
wasn't
you were
he?
helping get the guy's boat started. So that person made the right choice. Probably didn't know it at the time, but good on them.
And as we've been saying, Candace, wobbles matter. And so we've been looking at that cone for days now. And you were pinpointing those wobbles for us all throughout the day yesterday, a little bit to the north, a little bit to the south, and depending on where it wobbles can make a huge difference for people like that.
I mean, to be honest, the center of Milton, 5 miles south from where he is. So if that wobble would have been, let's say, 10 miles north, that storm surge would have been different.
Different live shot.
That would have been a different. That could have been a different live shot. Yeah. I mean, it might not have been as wet, but certainly the storm surge would have been a concern.
And I don't know if we have that live video of Punta Gorda, which is just south of where the storm made landfall, but you can see more of that storm surge. It is dark out there, but you can still see some of that water coming up over the bay. There it is there. And you can see, I mean, off to the right side of your screen, the water, it looks almost like a river in that particular area.
Yeah, it does. You can see the waves there.
Yeah, I mean, and this made landfall still. You can't tell in Eric's live shot there, but it is a Category 3 hurricane. So it officially making landfall as a major hurricane. Now remember, it's the right side of the storm, and the reason why the right side of the storm is always the worst is because not only do you have the 125 miles per hour surrounding it, that sustained wind, but it also, if it's going at a clip of 20 miles per hour, you have to add that speed to your sustained wind. So that's why it's always the worst on the right
But now
side.
is the time, should we worry about spin-ups of some tornadoes and that sort of thing that we saw earlier?
Well, I also want to point out that that's 52 miles from where it made landfall, that live shot.
Right, south.
So south of there.
Yeah.
And so
direction matters.
you've been showing us those maps of really the entire coastline that could be experiencing some storm surge.
I think
and
I
that just goes.
I have that graphic up if they want to pick it up on links on links 1, it kind of shows where the winds are going, pulling away from the northern side, and then pushing all of that water towards the coast on the southern side.
So
of
an
things.
hour south, there it is. That's what we've been looking at, and that's certainly based on the video that we're seeing tonight. Of course, we're going to see a lot more once the sun comes up and we can get a really good look at some of that storm surge and the damage that it's caused.
And it is going to be in the opposite side, by the way, once it gets to the East Coast. Like you were mentioning, that is why you can see from north of Milton as it exits out, that water's coming back on shore. So that's why we were talking about 3 to 6 foot storm surge for areas north of the Cape there up through Flagler.
Okay, so how long before we start seeing conditions deteriorate here in Central Florida, though?
We're gonna it's a downhill trend at this point in time. Now again, we're talking rainfall for the next several hours. Then as Milton's core goes over areas of Polk, Osceola, Brevard, that's going to be a pretty rough go. We do have reporters there. It's pretty much spread out all across Central Florida. So if you're not going to be dealing with that core of Milton, you're going to be dealing with the flooding rain. And then the coastline by early tomorrow morning will be the storm surge.
And once the eye makes its way further inland, I'm assuming that places like Sarasota, where Eric is, could start seeing more rain and more impacts there.
Right, yeah, the backside will have some of that rain. Again, that eye wall is a circle, right? So he cleared it. We saw some video of him where he was getting pelted and kind of tossed around a little bit from the rain. Then it was nothing. Then on the backside, he should be getting another bit of a wall.
So enjoy it while it lasts, Eric.
There's your window of opportunity.
You know, I'll tell you guys this: if there's one thing I learned, and I think Candace, you were, or Ginger, that was you talking about the yacht behind me. I was going to call it a boat, but it's certainly a yacht behind me. If there's one thing I learned about these hurricanes, you know, it comes down to time and place. You know, depending on what you believe. I like to use the word luck a lot, right? Do you have good luck or do you have bad luck? I mean, this was just incredible luck. And again, this is assuming that this moves through once the eye wall clears here and it moves through and it doesn't mess up these boats. But, you know, again, it's a matter of time. And, you know, we always say it's not if, it's when. It's a matter of time that it will happen to all of us, right? I mean, it's been a while since, you know, we've had any sort of track like this across Central Florida, but it was bound to happen, right? So all you can do, and the message is always the same from us, right? This is why we do this. This is why we're on TV several days ahead of this storm and telling people, if you get ready and you're disappointed that it wasn't worse at your house, amen, that's great. You know, all day long we'll take that. Because for so many other people, this storm is so wide, it is so powerful. So many other people are hurting from this storm. They're still hurting from the one 2 weeks ago. And for them, it was just awful luck being in that place at that time to where the storm just devastated them. It seems the folks here in Sarasota got a break, but, you know, they took the hit 2 weeks ago, and we're taking a hit now in Central Florida. Again, you know, I'm checking in with my wife. I'm hearing, you know, I know you guys are nervous about what you've already gotten so far and what is coming through, but that's why the message is always the same. Is it going to be your turn? You know, we don't know until we know. So, you know, be ready, right?
Yeah, tonight's a good night to be lucky instead of good. So I'll take the luck any day on a situation like this one.
Yeah.
Eric, thank you.
All right, News 6's James Sparvero is live in Brevard County, an area that had several tornado warnings earlier today. James, we have received reports that there's been damage in Cocoa. What are you seeing out in that area?
Cocoa Beach, Lisa and Ginger. So this is where the area of the tornado warning was earlier. Now, around that time at 5:30 this afternoon, I was in Cape Canaveral. I was looking to the sky. I didn't see anything. I thought we dodged a bullet. And then we came here and we got a totally different idea of what really happened. So I want to point out where I'm at. I'm at the Publix south of 520. There's two Publixes in Cocoa Beach. So not the Publix that's north of 520 by the pier. We're at the Publix that's south of the 520. Now, the Publix structure and the rest of the stores over there, they look just fine. They are separate, however, from the two businesses that are right here where I'm standing. This is the Supercuts in Cocoa Beach and also the Florida Eye Associates. So the Supercuts, the lights are on. That's about all that's on because the damage is pretty extreme, guys. Severe damage. if not totally destroyed, likely to be confirmed to be tornado damaged. So Corey will take the camera and he'll give you a look inside as best he can. Can you guys see that in here? Can you see just how bad that is?
That's awful. Oh my, that's a bit. Yeah, that's the supercuts. Wow.
It was a Supercuts, right? So the Supercuts in Cocoa Beach, right off of A1A, and there's just shattered glass everywhere. I'll point out, when you look at this building, the foundation of the building itself looks fine, but the entire building was designed with glass all around it. And I think that was the problem in this case, why all the windows just got shattered and blown out. And the damage extends around 360 degrees of the entire building. So now we're walking down to the Florida Eye Associates. This was the eyeglass store here in Cocoa Beach that Corey's going to show you next. And just like the Supercuts, the windows are blown out, so we can get our camera right inside and we can show you the extent of the damage. Just tell me again, Ginger and Lisa, do you see everything we're looking at? How's it look?
We definitely see it. That is heartbreaking when you see that. Are you seeing a case of it hit one place and then missed another?
Well, I think that's, what I was just trying to explain about. The rest of the shopping center here looks fine, but these two businesses are in this sort of a duplex where they're separate. They're closer to A1A, and beyond A1A, the light is out right there at A1A and Banana River that you can probably notice, and there's some damage to guardrails too. Now, fortunately, I don't believe anybody was here. That is some good news, but you can obviously tell this was the waiting room, and it looks like maybe, they didn't board up, obviously. There's no sign of any plywood or any hurricane shutters, although, I just noticed they did wrap their computers in plastic, but that was about it. And
so when all of this was happening, James, when there were those tornado warnings earlier today, where were you and Corey?
So Corey and I were about, I want to say 3 or 4 miles to the north. That's the distance. We were at the Spring Hill Suites. Spring Hill Suites is one of the newer modern hotels. If you want to be anywhere during a storm, that's probably the safest place you can be. And we were under the carport where you would drop yourselves off there in front of the hotel. And it did get pretty rough. It got really rough around 5:30 or 5:45. A lot of rain. It was very continuous. And I looked to the sky. I was trying to spot if we could see a tornado forming. At that time, I was also listening to our broadcast, and Jonathan and Candace were saying, I want to keep walking around the building just so we can show you as much damage as we can, by the way. They were calling it a water spout at that time. But I also remember as we continued our coverage, they said that water spout was making its way toward land. We took pictures of our port camera. So maybe that's where it was. Maybe that's what happened. But it was about 6 o'clock then that it got calm suddenly, and I thought we were out of the woods. But you always have that waiting period after you get some activity to see if there was really damage. And we found it here in Cocoa Beach off of A1A. The police were here earlier. They've left for now. And the only other people we're seeing here right now are other media or just people in the community who are curious, because about an hour and a half ago when we first got here, I did do a Facebook Live. So that was me for the first time letting people know what happened. And as that's circulating and as other reports are circulating from other outlets about what happened here, people have been coming out to see the damage. Again, if you're just joining us, it looks to be confirmed tornado damage here at the Supercuts and the Florida Eye Associates, the eyeglass store in Cocoa Beach. It's at the Publix Plaza. Maybe you just drive by here all the time and you just know the shopping center for the Publix and you're not as familiar with the other stores, but it's right here. It's right in front of A1A and Banana River, I believe, is the cross section. It's across the street from the Hilton and the Twin Towers condos. And again, Lisa and Ginger, we wanted to do a 360 around the building because the damage is very extensive. It's very severe. So we're going to peek in over here where we can give you another look inside at what's left of the old Supercuts in Cocoa Beach.
Yeah, James, I don't know if you can pan your camera just south of you, but there's the Wells Fargo Bank just south of you, and we were seeing pictures and reports of that building also sustaining pretty extensive damage, roof damage along there. I don't know if you've seen that today.
Yeah. Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, we can point that out now, too. There's an urgent care facility. So the damage really extends around the A1A and Banana River Boulevard, I believe, is the crossroad here. Guardrail damage. And then across the street, I'm not looking at the Wells Fargo, actually. I'm looking at the urgent care building, the medical group building. But they, too, it looks like had their windows blown out, and it looks like there's people already up there trying to board up for what we still have to go through, because of course this was just the start of the bad weather, and we're not going to see the storm pass through Brevard County until the overnight hours, and when it's here, as we expect, it will be about a Category 1. So yeah, I can see them with their drills. And again, I'm not looking at the Wells Fargo. Okay, the Wells Fargo I think is at the intersection and the lights are out. I think I'm looking at it right here. I think it's that building, Corey, but we won't be able to give people too good of a view, at least not this second, unless we were to cross the street, because it looks like their lights are out. Yeah, that's the Wells Fargo building right here. And it's actually my first time taking a look, and if we got up close, we might have something to show you, but I don't really see anything, Corey. Yeah, I don't see anything that looks like the damage would be comparable anyways to the Supercuts or the eyeglass store. But yeah, certainly on the second story there of the urgent care building, it's shade tree dermatology and urgent care. On the second story there, yeah, you can see some more damage up there. Windows were blown out, and there's currently some people right now doing their best to put something in those windows, some plywood, before the rest of the storm comes through, the rest of the night, prevent any further damage. But yeah, this is really the first damage of any kind significantly that I've been able to report here in Brevard County. Yesterday was just a calm day, basically. The only breaking news we had was that the Health First Hospital in Cape Canaveral, the Cape Canaveral Hospital, as they call it, it's in Cocoa Beach, that they were evacuating 27 patients just out of a precaution. That was really all we had to report yesterday. And we had the tornado warning suddenly. You know, you really didn't hear a whole lot from Brevard County's emergency management updates when it came to the possibility of tornadoes. A little bit. They focused on what they expected from the storm itself, I think, once it got here. So winds in the area of maybe 70 or 80 miles per hour being a Cat 1, and maybe rainfall in the neighborhood of 3 to 6 inches, and they mentioned maybe as much as a foot in the worst areas, or those low-lying flood, those areas that are prone to flooding. But I did see a post this afternoon from Cocoa Beach's mayor, Keith Capizzi, and he was talking on Facebook how he was really concerned about these tornado warnings because they're sudden, they're unpredictable, they can cause a lot of damage very quickly. And yeah, as we've been showing you now for the past 5 minutes, that's what's happened to the Supercuts and the Florida eyewear store. While we're still with you, Lisa and Ginger, why don't we just take another walk around the building? Maybe people weren't with us 5 minutes ago when we started our report, and we can give you another look inside. The look inside the eyewear store is striking. How you doing, sir? Another gentleman out here to take a look. Are we still with them, Corey? Okay. Okay, we're still with you guys, apparently. Are we still with you, Lisa and Ginger?
Yeah, we can hear you, James. I'm just concerned. You guys be careful when this stuff picks up again, because there's a lot of broken glass that can go flying, so please be careful.
That's a big concern. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, and James.
Yeah, well, you know that we have our policy here that we're going to be in a safe place at a certain time. Yeah. Candace wants to ask a question, of course. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, at the end of the day, that tornado warned area was the one in Brevard County that came in off the ocean. But one thing that Jonathan and I were able to pinpoint during that warned time there was that we did pick up that debris kind of detector, and that's when the radar basically picks up something that is not the typical raindrop. So I'm wondering if that, I would have to go back and look and compare locations and stuff like that, but that certainly seems to be the one that certainly caught our attention more than the other tornado warnings when it came to all the other kind of red flags. So unfortunately, that could have been some of the debris that was flying around that the radar did end up picking up.
And that's unfortunately what happens when a storm moves through at night. You can't see all of the damage until the sun comes up. And I think when, you know, they're able to get out there in the morning and see
look
some
at that Wells Fargo.
You're going to see, we were seeing some
is
pictures
gone,
earlier today of the roof and it's on clickorlando.com.
Maybe he's on the other side where that,
and it's hard to see at night too. So that's the other
And to your point,
issue.
you got to be careful because we still have that potential for some strong winds out there and you just don't know.
And that's something I really want to kind of hone in on right now because I feel like the live shot of Eric Von Aken made people go, oh, the storm wasn't that bad, right? A landfall. So we talked about this storm coming in layers, okay? And the concern for the afternoon was the tornadoes. So that threat is now starting to go down. We do have that tornado watch that will be done at about 9 o'clock this evening. Okay. Now the next concern is going to be flash flooding. We are still talking about rainfall, especially along the I-4 corridor, up to about a foot of rain in some locations. So we are still talking about the flooding threat. That is still going to be there because at the end of the day, when you look at the radar, there is still so much moisture on the northern side of this system that is certainly it has to go somewhere. Okay? This moisture doesn't just dissipate. Then the second concern is there in areas of Osceola, Polk, and Brevard County, where that center of Milton's going to go. Like you said, all that debris, all that glass is going to pick up just because that's where the core is expected to go. Now, it won't be a Category 3, thankfully, but we're still talking about very strong winds, hurricane force winds, especially in that zone. So again, it comes in layers. So don't let your guard down just because we had an eventful afternoon. The landfall didn't seem very wild and crazy, but at the end of the day, the system is a wonky one.
Yeah,
and that's what I have
you'll
to
get
remind
lulled
everybody.
into a false sense of security. All right, we're going to check in now with Molly Reed. She joins us live in Volusia County, where it looks like storm surge may be a concern there. It is already raining. Molly?
Yeah, Ginger, I mean, it's been interesting watching the newscast and seeing Eric Von Aken out there, pretty dry and everything, and we're getting whipped with the rain and wind here on the other side of the state. But the storm surge is the biggest concern, and as Candace was just saying, we can't let your guard down, especially over here in Volusia and Flagler counties, because when that storm makes its way out into the ocean, that storm surge is really going to start picking up then. Now, the problem is that I was already seeing today up and down the coast here in Volusia County, because so many of the beaches have been shrunken after the storms in 2022, is that earlier when the tide was almost at low tide, it was already, we're at the Hard Rock Hotel here, so this is the pool deck here. The low tide was already starting to reach the seawall and the beach walkovers here. So that means tonight at 1 a.m., when the storm's really picking up over here and it's at high tide, that storm surge is going to be something like the Volusia County leaders have been saying we did see back in 2022. I mean, you might be able to see, I know it's really dark out now, but you might be able to see the pool light there, which is, right against basically the seawall here at the Hard Rock Hotel. And it's already starting to make its way up there. So that means when the storm surge really ramps up, it's going to be flowing over. That's how the flooding here happens on the barrier islands. That's why we have that mandatory evacuation here. That is why we have the curfew in place so that no one's caught out in that. Again, we keep going back to those 2022 storms because here in Volusia and Flagler counties, it was one of the most catastrophic things these counties had seen as far as a storm in years, with houses falling into the water. We had 42 condos emergency evacuated, with deputies going door to door because the condo buildings were at risk of falling into the ocean, just as about a dozen homes did back in 2022 because of the storm surge from two storms that were coming across the state. Again, it was Tropical Storm Nicole back in 2022 that really made the most damage. And now we have what will be probably a Category 1 storm that's going to be picking up a storm surge. And we still have very fragile dunes and everything here. I did talk earlier to Beach Safety Director Tammy Malfers. She had a pretty good warning that I want to play for you right now. Don't even come near the beach, probably, right?
Yeah. I mean, we right now, especially with that surf coming up and hitting those structures like those walkovers, beach access ramps, things like that, we don't know how that will affect them. So everything could be compromised. So it could be very dangerous to go over a walkway or on a beach access ramp or anything like that.
After the 22, I mean, we still see projects like this. The beach is still pretty fragile.
Oh yeah, it's still it has built up a lot, but it's still real fragile. People are still in construction trying to repair the damage of 2022.
And just up north in Flagler County here, the Army Corps of Engineers just finished a massive project to try and do a buried seawall there, so they will have a little bit more protection for A1A, which in 2022 started in dozens of hurricanes, or in many hurricanes over the last dozen years, has crumbled into the ocean during storms. So hopefully they'll have a little bit more protection there, but they have added a lot of sand up there that is expected to erode at some point during this storm surge. Again, down in Volusia County, they are keeping their eyes on the buildings, structures like that. With this storm surge too, I mean, that again, I was saying earlier, that's what's going to cause a lot of the flooding here on the barrier island. You can see here over at the Hard Rock, we already have some water gathering, but this is why all these businesses have piles and piles and piles of sandbags, doing what they can to try to fight that part of it. But again, keeping our eyes on the storm surge with flooding. Now, the other big thing with the flooding, we all saw it across Central Florida with Hurricane Ian in 2022, is the flooding. It was something that we had never seen here before. They're very worried about that happening here again, too. We're keeping our eye on the Edgewater area, especially. I was just talking to the mayor there a little bit ago, and he told me that they are starting to see flooding in the roadways, in people's yards. Again, the storm isn't even at its worst here yet, and they're already seeing that there's nothing in people's homes just yet. But that is why they wanted people out of their homes. Hopefully they got out. We did see Sheriff Mike Chitwood and the Volusia Sheriff's Office. They have their high water vehicles out ready to go because they do know people, unfortunately, did not evacuate following those mandatory evacuation orders. But, again, we're kind of just holding on right now. I'm thinking, when high tide really starts picking up around 1 a.m., that's when we're going to see some of the strongest storm surge over here. And again, as they were saying, even when it looks clear out here, even when it might be blue skies again and the storm is back out into the ocean, the storm surge will still be going. Have to keep your eyes on it. Tammy Malfers was also telling me earlier, that's why she's warning people against those walkovers, staying away from there, because we did have a death during Hurricane Ian with a woman on a walkover right as the storm surge was starting to let go and unfortunately got swept out. So, we're just trying to keep an eye on those things over here on the coast right now. Back to you guys.
Yeah, Molly, I know you've been out there for a while today. Are you seeing other people out there? Are they heeding the warnings to stay put?
Yeah, less than usual, I'll at least say. We haven't seen too many people on the roads or anything like that. I do know a good amount of people, at least that I know personally, that live beachside here did actually take the warning this time and evacuate, especially, again, after seeing 2022, so many people are still, I hate to call it PTSD, but it really is something like that. People are so worried after seeing that for their houses, for flooding, for the destruction. So I think people actually this time did decide to take the warning on this one.
Yeah, as they should. I remember Sheriff Mike Chitwood said yesterday they had got 1,000 calls from people who had rising water in their home, and 5 of those people ended up losing their lives to that. So Molly, you be careful out there tonight, and we'll check in with you a little bit later on. Thank you.
And then coming on the heels of Hurricane Helene, people just don't want to take any chances.
No.
We do want to check in now in Osceola County, where there were several tornado warnings earlier today. Trooper Steve joins us there live with more on what he is seeing.
Hey guys, hope everyone is doing okay. For the most part, things have kind of calmed down here a little bit in the Osceola County area. I'm currently located at a place where the community gathers for celebrations. I'm talking the Osceola Heritage Park. Anyone familiar with Osceola County knows this is a place where high school graduations happen, where the rodeo, where the county fair takes place. But right now, this has been taken over by the Osceola County Sheriff's Office, by the Osceola County Fire Department, and their partners with the National Guard. So outside, we have some vehicles staged here in some strategic points. But as we kind of walk and pan this way, by the way, I've got to give a huge shout out to our photographer, Mr. Brewer. Man, you want to talk about putting a rookie news guy out in the field with an experienced photojournalist? It's been an amazing time. So what you're seeing is right inside here is where normally this entire area, the rodeo, takes place out here. And it's been completely gutted and redesigned to house all these vehicles. So inside here, we have a fleet from the Osceola County Sheriff's Office that includes 2 high water rescue vehicles, along with 2 of their tactical response vehicles. Now, obviously, right now, we're in emergency response mode. So they're not really serving warrants right now. These vehicles are designed to go into areas where your average patrol car can't. Also, the fire department here. Listen, our law enforcement and our FD, they work hand in hand. There's always a fun relationship there, but when it comes down to emergencies, they're working together. So here they have their special operation vehicles that are here, along with a few ambulances and another high water rescue vehicle. They're really ready. But the coolest thing that I've seen here is they have their entire agricultural unit. Now, some may be like, what's the big deal about that? But we're talking boats and airboats. For me personally, I think having the airboats here is probably the best resources that they have, because those boats can pretty much get anywhere. During Ian, we saw that here along Orange Blossom Trail when a few of their units got stuck on Orange Blossom Trail and they had to go and save some of their people out there. So these airboats can pretty much get anywhere. The coolest thing is their partnership with the National Guard. They have probably 6 to 10 Humvees ready to go, along with 4 high water rescue vehicles. There's been an influx, in and out, shift change happening. A lot of people have finally heeded that warning when that first band moved through here in Osceola County. Our entire meteorologist team were out there pinpointing those alerts as it came through, to the point where Rob and I had to kind of wait for a second at the St. Cloud Emergency Operations Center before we headed east into that storm. You guys know me. I want to go right to where the action's at. And of course, at that point, they were like, listen, Steve, it's a little too dangerous. Let's park results 1. And then once it cleared up, we went and did a damage assessment out on the east side. Now, I probably can say probably the best thing about being able to go and assess that damage, we didn't see any, at least in our point of view, East 192 from the St. Cloud area all the way towards Deer Park. I can't help but think about my times out on patrol. When I was a state trooper full time, this was my first assignment. It's also my home. It's where my parents raised me. It's where my mom currently lives. So to see that that did not cause too much issue out here was really heartwarming, because the response after this, guys, it's going to be crazy. And I think that's what a lot of people are realizing. When we were in Poinciana earlier, I did get a little frustrated. Chief Meteorologist Candace Campos, she heard that frustration in my voice, because we drove from Orlando all the way down here to South Osceola County, and there were people all over the road in Poinciana and Poinciana only. I'm starting to get frustrated right now just thinking about it. But as we saw those bands start to come through and those warnings came through, it looked like everybody just started to scurry once we left Poinciana into the city of Kissimmee, unincorporated portions of the county along 192 and Neptune, and then, of course, sliding into the city of St. Cloud. No damage by those tornadoes, at least what we were able to observe along US 192. And then, of course, we made our way out here. Haven't been able to run into the sheriff just yet, but him and I have had some communication, and this is where they will deploy all their resources once they deem it is safe. And that's the big thing, guys, is to stay connected with us here on News 6, have that reliable source, because once they put that information out, we simply echo that so everyone knows. And then, of course, you want to wait a little bit. That's why this is here, so they can get out on the road and they can make the assessment on what is safe. Rob and I were driving along Neptune Road in unincorporated portions of Osceola County. It splits. It parallels US 192, and there is so much construction out here in Osceola County that we saw barrels still hanging out. And I'd be honest, guys, that's my biggest concern right now, is these unsecure areas that of possible debris. It does not take much for these construction barrels and cones to get lifted off and torpedoed across the street. And yet they were all over US 192. So you do not want to be out after this storm. Let the men and women of the sheriff's office, of your local police department, of DOT come out and clear these roadways before you decide that you want to see what's going on. But they will be here throughout the storm. They are constantly putting out information. Rob and I are going to stick here for a little bit and pay attention to our meteorologists just to see what's happening so we can find our safe space. But it does look like the men and women here in Osceola County, all the first responders, are pretty much just waiting. They're so prepared in here. They've got their sleeping bags out here. They're away from their families, making sure everyone's okay. But we're going to keep monitoring with them. We've already talked to a few of the specialized units. And once the storm clears, once Chief Meteorologist Candace Campos says, hey, we are now in better form when it comes to weather, they're going to go out to assess. Rob and I and Results One are going to be right there with this team. So for now, guys, I'm going to send it back to you guys in the studio. I'm live at Heritage Park.
Yeah, it's good to see they're ready down there in Osceola County, Steve. And I know earlier when we had those pretty nasty looking tornado warnings, I was curious about the area. You said you were driving around Holopod, Deer Park. That's a pretty rural spot, right? Is it possible something could have touched down and maybe it was just in the woods and there weren't residential areas around?
It is possible, because we pulled up the grid in the St. Cloud EOC, because when Candace and Jonathan were zooming into that area, I was like, wow, these look like a gridded street area. But talking to the fire chief of the city of St. Cloud, he was able to show me on the screen. He goes, look, there's not much residential neighborhood out there. Yes, there are some, believe it or not. We have some avid Kenansville residents that watch the morning show. So boom, my Facebook Messenger popped up and like, Steve, we're okay. But you're welcome to come down and check us out anyway. But out there, it is extremely rural. Some of the probably most rural portions of our Central Florida area, still undeveloped, is out in that area, Matt.
Yeah, they raised some good bulls down there in Kenansville. Trooper Steve, thank you very much. We'll check back in with you in a little bit.
All right, we do want to show you another live look from Bradenton, Florida. This is just north of Sarasota, where our Eric Von Enken was standing by about 30 minutes ago, where he was when the eye came through. It was dry, but as our team of meteorologists have been telling us, with that counterclockwise motion, we are expecting more rainfall on the northern side of the eye of the storm. So that's what we are seeing there. We mentioned Deer Park and Kenansville. Our meteorologists are joining us now, Julie Broughton and our chief, Candace
Feels
Campos.
like 4 days ago.
Yeah, and I was here earlier today when we were pinpointing those tornado warnings, and we're talking about Deer Park and Kenansville. You guys were showing us those so-called debris balls.
Yeah.
But there absolutely, I'm sure, could be pockets that saw some tornadic activity.
Yeah. It's like when the tree falls in the woods, no one hears it,
Right,
right?
yeah.
But when you have radar like that, you can certainly see it. I mean, it was confirmed by the National Weather Service that there was something on the ground. We just didn't have confirmation on the ground that there was something there.
And that was the hope when we started seeing all of those warnings pop up, that they were happening in less populated areas.
Right.
And so, we haven't received any reports of any injuries yet, but we have seen some damage in some areas.
Yeah, Cocoa Beach, that was kind of, you were right there watching. James just walking through that. It's heartbreaking when you see so many of these businesses.
Yeah, so sad to see all the debris, and we'll be seeing more damage, I'm sure, because we talked about this being such a big tornado maker, and we had a lot of tornado warnings throughout the day, and several of those were confirmed tornadoes. So I'm sure as the sun comes up tomorrow, unfortunately, we will see more damage, and At this point, as Lisa said, we haven't heard of any injury, so we hope that that continues to be the case.
The governor earlier saying that there are 19 reported touchdowns as of right now.
Wow, that is
So,
crazy. Yeah,
and
from
these were
very
weak.
far south.
No,
to-
these,
yeah,
the pictures that
strong.
we're seeing, those images are terrifying.
And some of the ones you guys were bringing up that it looked like they started in the ocean off the coast, and you were worried about them coming onto land. I'm not sure if that's what happened in Cocoa, but these were.
It is.
That is exactly what happened. These look like big, thick, strong tornadoes.
Yeah, I mean, and that one was a little more short-lived, but it doesn't matter if it's a long track or not. As you could see with Cocoa Beach, it doesn't take much to do a lot of damage. All right, let's look here at the satellite and radar composite. This is again the picture of Hurricane Milton, still a Category 3 hurricane, officially making landfall just a few minutes ago in Siesta Key. Now, like Lisa's been talking about here, that's the northern end. So I don't want us to get lulled into just like, we don't have to, the tornado watch is now over. We're not too concerned anymore. That's not going to be the case as we head into the overnight hours, because although the tornado threat's not there, the flash flooding is certainly a big concern for us here in Central Florida, because at the end of the day, we still need all of this moisture, all of this wind to make its way through Central Florida, because Milton is not just going to be brushing the west coast of Florida like a lot of storms in the past have done. This is a very unique, very interesting system that is going straight from the Gulf of Mexico and pushing out towards the west, something we have not seen in quite some time. So again, this is what the current conditions look like on the satellite and radar. Kind of zooming in a bit closer. There is the eye wall. Now, most likely Eric Von Aken now seeing a little more in the bit of rain, as he's now going to be kind of on the backside of that eye wall as Milton again continues to make its way towards the I-4 corridor. So what can we expect here in Central Florida? It was the tale of two coasts, right? We had Eric that was basically dry at one point in the center of Milton, and then out in Volusia County, we had Molly Reed, who was getting pelted with rain and winds already. So that is going to be the concern, where it's not just a eye wall system. This is going to be a broad wind flow. The wind field, the storm and the rain field is going to be extremely large, especially on that northern side. That is something we've been talking about since about Sunday earlier this week and last weekend. So this is what the radar looks like as of right now. We are seeing just a lot of rain at this point in time. I mean, it's just at the end of the day, torrential downpours. And the problem is I'm going to put it here into motion if I can, if the computer's going to let me to. And you can see how it's just the rain just continues over the same spot. So let's say Bushnell, for instance. This is within the last hour or so, and the rain just has not let off. And this is the big concern next. So the tornado threat has gone down. So I think we're kind of clearing that corner, and we're moving more into the next threat, and that's going to be the flash flooding, because just look at how much rain is falling. Now, no big lightning threat right now. This is not very severe weather, but when you still talk about this much rain after what has been a very soggy past couple of days well before Milton, the grounds are saturated, so it's not going to take much, unfortunately, to start the flooding concern. So again, all the green icons you see here, all those little polygons, those are all flash flood warnings, as already we are starting to get reports coming in of just a large amount of rain. So areas into Altamont Springs, Sanford, areas of Deltona and Edgewater, out towards our coastal communities as well. You might not have seen all the severe weather like your friends further south in Osceola and Brevard, but you're certainly seeing kind of the worst of the rain at this point in time. Now, once again, all of the moisture you see here where the center of Milton is, all this moisture, all this rain has to go somewhere. So as Milton tracks its way towards I-4, so does all of the rain. So again, this is just the start of how much rain we can be getting. Latest track on Hurricane Milton as of the 9 a.m. update has winds now at 115 miles per hour, still holding it as Category 3. It will be weakening pretty quickly by Thursday at 2 a.m. So again, we've got Still quite a bit of storm to go. It made landfall, but that's not the end of it, especially for us here in Central Florida. So as it continues to push out, it won't be until about 2 o'clock in the afternoon that the system is really going to start pulling away. So between now and about 9 a.m. tomorrow, it's still talking about a 12-hour track from coast to coast that we're going to be dealing with. All right, let's look here at the storm surge. We explained a little bit of the reasoning why Eric isn't dealing with as much storm surge, which is fantastic news for areas of Sarasota and Bradenton. And that's because it was just on that northern fringe pushing and actually pulling the water actually away. Unfortunately, though, that water has to go somewhere, and it's actually getting fed right into areas of Cape Coral and areas south of Bradenton. So there certainly will be verified storm surge issues across the southern half, but again, right where the Tampa Bay area, big concerns there after what they dealt with Helene. It looks like they might have had actually dodged a big bullet there in the Tampa Bay area. All right, let's talk about the rainfall first. We'll get to winds in just a second, but rainfall is going to be the most widespread concern at this point in time because we are going to continue to see rain. This is about 2 o'clock in the morning. The rain is still there. It's 9:15. So we're seeing rain now. So 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. That's the next 6 hours where some of our communities might be dealing with almost 6 hours of rainfall when this is all said and done, which is why there have been a lot of models highlighting the I-4 corridor to pick up almost a foot of rain by the time this is all said and done. Now that center is finally going to start emerging out over parts of Brevard County by about daybreak tomorrow morning, around 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. And then it's going to be that wraparound wind concern that Molly was talking about that's going to increase the concern for storm surge. So tornadoes should be completed. The threat now for flooding, then the threat for wind, because as again Milton crosses the state, we're still talking about some damaging wind gusts. Power outages will still be a big issue. Standing by now more with on how much rainfall and how much the wind we can be expecting is meteorologist Julie Brodden.
Candace, as you were showing us, we are seeing just torrential downpours across much of Central Florida. Notice if you're in southeastern Osceola County or southern Brevard County, at the moment you are dry, but as we travel farther to the north up toward areas like Titusville, Daytona Beach, Deltona, back toward the villages, Apopka, down toward Claremont, Mascot, Groveland, over toward Lake Panasoffkee, that is where we're seeing very heavy rain, also extremely heavy rain affecting our friends in Polk County in the Lakeland area. Now, here's a look at the 6-hour rainfall totals. So this is how much rain we've seen since about 3 o'clock this afternoon. Now, if you look, you'll notice the areas where we're seeing the purple. So just north of Lakeland, you've picked up 6 inches of rain in the last 6 hours. So 5 to 5.5 inches of rain across parts of eastern Seminole County. Again, we have those flash flood warnings in place down to the south in southern Brevard County. Almost 5 inches of rain, about 2.5 inches of rain down toward the Kenansville area. And then around the Rockledge area, you've picked up about 3 inches of rain. Also, Daytona Beach, you have seen about 3 inches of rain. And as you've seen on the radar, more rain is coming. As we said, this will be a several-hour event as Milton tracks across Central Florida. Here is a look at our sustained winds right now. So already Lakeland is seeing tropical storm force sustained winds at 43 miles per hour. Sanford, your winds are at 33 miles per hour. And look at Daytona Beach and New Smyrna Beach with those strong winds right now coming out of the east of tropical storm force winds, 41 miles per hour in Daytona Beach, 40 in New Smyrna Beach. Cape Canaveral, you are seeing 24 mile per hour winds. I want to show you the gusts. So again, we are expecting hurricane force gusts, especially as we move through the next couple of hours. That's really going to start to pick up for us. But already Orlando is gusting to 55 miles per hour. Palm Coast up in Flagler County, you were looking at 42 mile per hour wind gusts, 38 mile per hour gusts in Melbourne. So as you're seeing, we're talking about those strong winds again as that center of circulation wrapping around, and that is helping to bring all of that moisture into Central Florida. Here is something I'm hearing from a lot of people texting me saying, hey, my power's out. What's going on? By the way, if your power does go out, we are streaming across all of our platforms. If you have our app, you can still continue to stream on your phone if you have cell access. But this is a look at our power outages as of right now. So in areas like Seminole County, Orange County, you're talking about 14,000 people without power. Northern Lake County, 14,000 people without power. As the winds go through, these will go way up because when we're talking about those trees coming down, power lines coming down. So So I think a lot of us will be dealing with those widespread power outages. We will talk more about your county by county impacts and what's going on coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, Julie, thank you. And of course, we have crews spread out across the state right now. We've seen some of the impacts along the coast from Brevard County to Volusia County, as well as the West Coast. We now want to go inland, where News 6's Troy Campbell is live for us in Orange County. Troy, where exactly are you and what are you seeing?
Well, we're along John Young Parkway outside of News 6, and you can just see how much the wind has really picked up. It's been raining subtly for several hours, but now those gusts have really started to come through. And as you heard Julie say, the gusts have got to about 55 miles an hour, and I would say that those, or we know, are only going to get stronger. And officials also say with the rain, you could get up to a foot, and it's already been steadily raining here for several hours. We know that county officials say that people took 200,000 sandbags over the last couple of days trying to prepare for the storm. We know that with power outages, that is something I've been watching. It went from 250 power outages at 7 p.m. to now that number is about 15,000 just in Orange County. And every time I check it again, it goes up dramatically. And of course, it's dark out, it's windy. If you hear something and your power goes out, don't risk going outside and getting injured near any down lines. Wait till the morning. Most people end up getting injured from the cleanup after the storm. So make sure you stay inside. Also, happy to report we're not seeing as much traffic as we were seeing along John Young Parkway. If you remember earlier this evening, we had tornado warnings in Orange County. And as we had those active tornado warnings, we had a very busy roadway. So they were not heeding the warnings from officials. They also have in Orange County 1,300 people that they say have showed up to shelters in order to stay safe from this storm. Mayor Jerry Demings, he says that people really need to take this storm seriously. Here's a little more on what he had to say this evening.
There's a strong possibility of localized flooding, flash flood warnings, and even flash flood emergencies are possible beginning tonight. In addition to heavy rain in Orange County, we anticipate sustained tropical storm force winds at 45 to 65 miles per hour overnight, and we will likely see wind gusts up to 80 miles per hour. That means that there's going to be some damage within our community. It means that we're likely going to have some localized flooding again. But we're prepared. We have done a lot of work with our Public Works Department to lower the water bodies throughout the county. We have pre-positioned pumping systems throughout the county to help us should we have additional localized flooding.
And as you heard him say, the wind gusts could get up to 80 miles an hour, and we're just hitting about 55. So we definitely are still just getting into it here in Orange County. And as you heard him touch on, public works crews have spent the last several days going into neighborhoods, including like the Pinot Country Club and other areas, or La Vista, that are known to flood. And they brought in their pumps to pump out some of those retention ponds. So when this, which could be a foot of rain, falls, it doesn't just completely flood out those homes. But again, people taking 200,000 sandbags shows you just how seriously people are taking it. So of course, we're going to continue to monitor the conditions here in Orange County. Live in Orlando, Troy Campbell, Getting Results, News 6. Back to you.
Yeah, Troy, I'm curious if they think, because the wind is going to be pretty significant when it comes through, but it's hard to balance. Is a foot of rain going to be more difficult to deal with than, say, 80, 90 mile per hour winds? Do county leaders seem more concerned with one thing or another, or it's just all of it at this point?
It's a little bit of both, but yeah, the wind event with this, they think that could be the problem. Good news with this storm, we are seeing that it is moving. It would be a bigger problem if this storm wasn't moving at the speed it was, if it just got over us and sat. So as it does move through us at a decent pace, it's just going to have those strong wind gusts. So that's why they made those warnings of bring in those lawn chairs, bring in things that could just fly and create more damage. And especially as we've seen the tornadoes that whipped up. So wind damage so far has been the majority of what we've seen.
All right.
Faster paced storm, definitely better
we
for
want.
flooding
Yeah.
issues. Troy Campbell live for us in Orange County. Thank you.
News 6 investigator Mike DeForest is live in Sumter County in the Villages, keeping a close eye on what's happening there. Definitely looks like it's raining a lot harder where you are, Mike.
Hey, Lisa, yeah, I would say within probably the last hour or two, we've really seen the rain pick up and the winds pick up. Now, certainly not as significant as Eric Von Anken is seeing out on the coast, but as this storm gets closer, we're going to definitely start feeling the effects. The biggest concern in this part of central Florida, Sumter County and up into Marion County, is the flooding. Now, the good news here where we are in the Villages, Sumter County officials have been telling people who live in the Villages to shelter in place at home. That's because so many of these homes are newer and built with the modern hurricane building code, so they believe the buildings will be safe, but also it was built above the 100-year floodplain. So in the Villages themselves, there isn't an extreme concern about flooding, but as you expand out into the rest of Sumter County, there are flooding concerns and there are wind concerns. And in fact, a lot of people in Sumter County have been taking advantage of the emergency shelters. Many of the shelters have been filling up, including the one at the Sumter County Fairgrounds actually filled up several hours ago. So people heeding the warnings who don't feel safe in their mobile homes or their RVs, taking shelter there. But as for the folks actually living within the developed parts of the Villages, again, the recommendation for the last couple of days has been to just shelter in place. Standing out here now, again, we're getting the wind and the rain. We're starting to see a couple of the branches break off here. Nothing terribly significant yet, but of course, the eye of the storm is still quite a ways away. I think folks who've been living out here have been watching this storm closely, not knowing which direction it was going to go. The relative good news for folks here, obviously bad news for other parts of Florida, is that it looks like the storm is steering south of the Villages and south of much of Sumter County. So in terms of that strong wind event, I think people are breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief. But that doesn't mean that the impacts are not going to be felt as this rain picks up and we continue to still get the wind gusts from here. So we're seeing some people out now just kind of walking around down there, assessing what's going on. But right now it's still fairly mild here. I'm sure if you check back with us in a couple hours, it may be a little bit different situation.
Mike, I think your definition of mild is a little different than most probably, but yes, it could be a lot worse, that's for sure. I'm curious how the conditions are, because I know when I've been out in hurricanes in the past, the squall lines tend to come in really hard. Are you seeing just intense moments, or has it just been like that?
Steady.
It's been steady, and yes, this is all relatively speaking, of course. This is obviously a lot gustier and a lot heavier wind than we would typically see during a summer rainstorm. Don't get me wrong. We're going through a hurricane right now, and folks here can feel it. But compared to other parts of Central Florida, I think that's been the blessing for folks here, that it is moving a bit south of here. But again, I want to caution that does not mean that things are going to be okay. It could be a rough couple hours here. But at least here in the developed parts of the Villages, the county seems fairly confident that the homes are going to hold up. We are getting trees down, though, throughout Sumter County, particularly down in Bushnell. There are several roads that are now shut down because those trees are starting to come down. Earlier tonight, we even had some power lines down. Officials were able to get those up and running. I'm not exactly sure of the power situation throughout much of Sumter County. Right where I'm at now, all the lights are on, and folks are really hoping it stays that way for now. But we're not getting the extremely strong wind gusts. It's been a pretty steady wind and rain, at least for the last couple hours, Matt.
Yeah, Candace has been saying you are definitely going to be on the wet side of this storm. Areas to the south of the eye will be on the windier side of this storm. But as you noted, the ground's so saturated that even a little bit of wind can knock a lot of trees over. So we're going to continue to check in with you. Mike DeForest reporting live for us in the Villages tonight.
All right, what do you say we head out to the coast? We check on Eric Von Anken. He has been in the eye of this storm. He has seen the eye wall, and I understand he's been seeing some pretty wild stuff. Eric, are some transformers blowing up around you?
Hey, Matt. Yeah, Lisa, so the last thing you guys said to me, I think it might have been Ginger about 40 minutes ago, was enjoy it while you can. Because the eye wall has clearly passed, and we are now on the backside of this hurricane, and Yes, lots of transformers blowing, Matt, here over downtown Sarasota. So in between these gusts, what we're seeing is the skyline go darker, starting from the south end of Sarasota. So you see this, what looks like fireworks? Lost my hat here. Jeff, did you catch that? So in the sky, it looked like maybe, I don't know, five or so transformers blowing all at the same time in the distance there. It is possible that was lightning, except that it was all in the same spot, and we haven't seen lightning in the last several hours here. So very likely those are transformers, because what's happening now is the wind has shifted direction, right? So, that's how hurricanes work. Now that the eye wall has passed us, we're get. What's that, Jeff? Oh, hold on, we got some interference here. We got another crew here. So now that we're on the backside of the storm, the other side of the wind is coming at us, and it's coming from the other direction. So what hasn't gotten nailed by the wind is now getting nailed by the wind. The way these structures are set up, the way that the wind was blowing initially, obviously protected some of them depending on where they were, including many of the transformers. And now the transformers, obviously, that were vulnerable, that are not being protected by the buildings and the other infrastructure because the wind has switched 180 degrees. They are vulnerable, and now they are exploding, because typically that's what happens when wind like this blows this hard, either knocking them off, blowing them apart. It just takes an electrical short, and that's why the sky lights up. There are chemicals inside those transformers that cause the different colors to look almost like a rainbow. Here in downtown Sarasota, remember we talked earlier about projected storm surge. So projections were upwards of 13, 14 feet, even 15 feet, depending on who you talk to. And before the eye wall moved over Sarasota County, Siesta Key specifically, from what I'm hearing, which is straight that way, just about a mile or so, before the eye wall came in, we had not seen a noticeable change in the height of the water here. And Candace said that based on what you've seen so far, it's not likely that you're going to get that kind of storm surge where you are as this storm continues to pass through. But I can tell you what is different is the water is definitely starting to come up higher than it was. Because remember, for the last 6-8 hours, there has been no change. Now, got to be fair, you got to factor in the tides, right? So we're heading towards, what is it, 9? Tough to see my watch. I think it's 9:30-ish. So we're heading towards high tide, which is right around 3 a.m.-ish here. I want to say right around 3:30 in the morning. So naturally the tide is coming in. And naturally, as the wind is blowing and this hurricane continues to blow through here, it will raise the water level. The question is how much of it is high tide or higher tide as the tide comes in, and the question is how much is from Hurricane Milton. And obviously we don't know the answer to that yet, but you heard from Candace a little while ago. She was feeling fairly good that at least this area, if you have interest here, if you have a second home or a condo, or you got family or friends here, she felt fairly confident that this spot would not be seeing the storm surge that they were predicting. But still, Jeff, I can't even see you, Jeff. Can you show the dock right in front of you? Because even just in the last 4 or 5 minutes since I started talking with you guys, this has changed. The dock that I'm standing on here has risen, and the water here in the bay is starting to overtake the sidewalk just a little bit. And again, the wind blowing this direction now is, like I said, it was spun 180 degrees, but it's the Gulf that's this direction, so, straight out west from where I'm standing. And as I was explaining earlier, so what's unique about Sarasota is one of the inlets, one of the channels that goes straight out to the Gulf, is directly west of me, so directly in front of me. So the ocean, the Gulf of Mexico, has open access to where we're standing right here in Sarasota Bay. And that's what happened about 2 weeks ago with Hurricane Helene when that storm washed in. Because coming in from the Gulf, it did push first into the Barrier Islands, and then even here, which surprised a lot of people, into downtown Sarasota on the bayfront. There's a whole park here that's right there. Of course, you can't see it right now, but this is really a beautiful area, or was a beautiful area before Hurricane Helene came through, and it didn't soak downtown Sarasota, the bayfront here, but it did come over the roadway and wrecked a lot of the concrete, and so, there were obviously some pretty powerful waves coming in from that last storm, and it washed, I told you this, it washed a bunch of boats up onto the shore and up onto the island at the Bayfront Park right next to me. So I think that was the first taste of what a very powerful storm could do here on the Gulf Coast, at least southwest Florida, in a long, long time. And for a lot of people, we interviewed so many people over the last, what have we been here, 3 days now, who were brand new. I mean, Jeff, we were at the Wawa last night trying to fight to get our own pump to fill up our news truck, our live truck. And then we went inside, and a guy comes up to us and he says, "We just moved here from," I don't remember, I want to say somewhere in the Midwest, but he says, "We just got here. What do we do? Where do we go?" And this was last night, so we said, well, at this point, it's a little bit late. Hopefully, your house is okay, or you've taken care of your house, but go inland. Go to Central Florida. I mean, it is. This is something that hasn't. This path, as we've been talking about, is something that hasn't happened to Southwest Florida in some 100 years or so. And so many folks have moved here to Sarasota. I mean, I lived here in 2000. I just lived here for a few years, but so many people since then have moved in. I remember the time I was living here, Florida and Southwest Florida was growing like crazy, and it has continued to do so. So this is a new experience for so many people, and we know the same thing in Central Florida, right? I mean, how fast is Orlando growing? Something like 1,000, the figure we keep hearing is something like 1,000 people a week moving to Central Florida from all over the country. So the warnings that we keep hearing about, the concern is that people might not take them seriously, and the people who have been here through some of these storms, who got lucky and were able to ride them out, might be influencing some of the new folks. But emergency managers have been, as you've heard, you've heard the sound bites from the governor, you heard the sound bite from the mayor of Tampa. Some of these officials have been terrified that if we don't take this one seriously, there is going to be major loss of life because of the power of this storm, the winds, how quickly it grew, how much it intensified, and what it was supposed to do when it made landfall here again in Siesta Key, which is, like I said, just a mile from where we are. We were on Siesta Key, remember, yesterday, reporting live from that resort that just got pummeled with sand. So, what is happening so far? I already got a bunch of calls. I know people want to know, how is Sarasota? And the answer is it ain't over yet. During that calm, as the eye wall passed over us, we had hope that this particular area was going to do better than some of the projections and some of the predictions. This is now the second half of the storm. So all we can do is hang out and hang on, literally, Matt and Lisa, and see what this brings us as this now heads toward you guys in Central Florida.
All right, Eric. Yeah, and we do want to bring in our chief meteorologist, Candace Campos, because we have a lot to unpack there.
Go ahead.
You've been standing here for, right, and we've been quizzing you for the past hour or so. When we first checked in with Eric, it was stormy out there. Then, of course, we went back to him, saw that eye wall, completely different story. Now it's back. And we saw our Mike DeForest in Sumter County starting to see some of that heavier rain showers.
Right.
And we saw all of those flashes of blue. That is not lightning.
That is not lightning.
Blown transformers.
Yeah.
You do have updated information on the number of power outages that we are starting to see. Already more than 100,000 in that area alone.
Yeah, I don't know if they want to pull up links one. I know they're pressing a lot of buttons all at the same time right now. But right now, just kind of getting some wind gust reports. In that area where he's at right now, between Siesta Key and St. Petersburg, you can see this. There's a little spin. That's right over where he is right now.
Oh, okay.
So around that eye on the outside of it, right now there's gusts there, 93 miles per hour. So he's certainly starting to feel those wind gusts of excess of 100 to 115 miles per hour. Now, mind you, there is an excessive wind warning exactly where he's at. It's a very rare warning to have. It really just focuses on those big time landfalling hurricanes. So this is the power outage map that Lisa was mentioning. Obviously the ones in the bright reds are you see there.
And it's updating in real time.
You see it just flickered. Yeah. So right now in and around where Von Aken is, we're looking at 170,000. And by the way, interesting enough, when we were watching the start of his live shot there, it was down to about 140,000.
So just in that time that he was talking, it's jumped up by 30,000.
Well, did you see how many transformers
There was
were
at
blowing?
least 10 transformers blowing.
Right.
And so how do you know that it was not lightning? How are you so confident in that?
Because of the radar. We were looking at the radar, and you see the total lightning strikes there on the top of your screen. 0 to 1.
Oh.
And going back to that first graphic that you showed us with some of the wind gusts, and you mentioned the word spin, which I think anyone who's been watching our coverage today is very sensitive to that word.
Yes.
Because we have had so many tornado warnings all throughout the day. The governor saying earlier we had 116 tornado warnings, including 19 touchdowns, and we know that we do have damage in parts of Central Florida. That threat of major tornadic activity went away at around 9 o'clock tonight.
Yeah, so the tornado watch has been discontinued. All right, so at the end of the day, we knew that tornado threat was going to be high by about the lunchtime hour. That's why we really were stressing to folks that they needed to be in place by noon, because by 1 o'clock, we started getting all those reports from South Florida all the way up through Central Florida with those tornado warnings. Now that threat looks like what, Mike DeForest is going through right now with just pummeling rain, just consistent rain for hours at a time now.
And as a result, we have several flash flood warnings now in effect.
Yeah, racking up a lot of rain. So 3-5 inches already at this point in time.
I'm curious, as you've watched Milton come ashore here, has anything surprised you with the way that it's set up? Because it is such an odd storm that
She's been calling it wonky, not odd.
I'm going to say odd. Yeah. It came from an odd place.
It
it's
did.
now doing weird things at times. They all wobble, but it had sort of funky wobbles.
Well, and there's barely any rain on the southern end of it.
That's very weird.
But it's windy.
But it is windy, right? It's still
and
the right
that's
side.
the dirty side, right?
Right. But the dirty side is where they're still seeing the strongest winds on the southern side. The storm surge is still life-threatening. It's still going to be very damaging for so many communities there on the southern side. But the models, if you were watching our newscast throughout the last couple of days, we've been talking about this system really being top heavy with that rain, that dry air, which kind of helped to go from a raging Category 5 hurricane to still a powerful hurricane. Don't get me wrong, still major Category 3 strength. That dry air started to feed in on the southern end of it, and that started kind of choke its ability to strengthen even further.
Well, we've been saying the phrase too, you want to hide from the wind, run from the water. You and I have been sharing pictures of our friends and family wearing their helmets. They were heeding your warnings earlier today when we were under that threat for tornadic activity. So hopefully we're beyond that, but now all eyes are on the water threat. Our Molly Reed is in Volusia County, and as we've been watching that storm surge, because of that counterclockwise motion, could be, pulling the storm, the surf from the south, and unfortunately Volusia County could see a lot of that.
And Molly right now is dealing with a lot more wind than we did just a few minutes ago when we came to her. That wind field is now approaching areas as far north as Volusia.
Molly, how you feeling out there?
Matt, I feel great. Doesn't it look like it? No, we are now definitely feeling what I consider, the sustained winds. In fact, Volusia County has officially now just closed all of the causeways to the beach side. So if you did ignore that mandatory evacuation and you decided to ride it out beach side, you're gonna be stuck here for a little while. I'm actually gonna move out of the wind here for a second so you can even hear me a bit, but you can definitely tell that wind is starting to pick up and it's staying here for a while. I'm next to the beach right now. We're at the Hard Rock Hotel in Daytona Beach, and I did walk out front too, just to make sure it wasn't just the ocean breeze over here, and it is feeling like that all over A1A. We are, as far as the rain, starting to really feel the rain coming in, of course, too. I'm seeing some pooling on A1A just in Daytona Beach, but as you guys were saying, as far as flooding here beachside, it's really probably going to be coming from that storm surge. Again, the high tide here on the East Coast is a lot of people did follow it, but there's always going to be that select few who just say, I'm going to ride this out. If my house is going, I'm going with it. And there are a lot of people who decided to stay home, and they're going to be stuck now beachside. Now, of course, I've been checking in with all over Volusia County. There's some certain areas that I know we're really concerned with for flooding just from rainfall. One of those being Edgewater. I've been reporting there over the last several days just in anticipation to this storm, just because of the drainage system there. The city told us that the drainage system there was just not maintained over the last several years, and unfortunately everyone I've checked in with over there is saying it's getting pretty bad as far as the flooding. A lot of people at first were saying about an hour ago that it was just really the streets, things like that, and I just actually texted my dog sitter who lives there, and he said the water is now up to his front door. And I know Candace has been saying we're just starting to rain here, and there's going to be a lot more. Ready to head out in case there is anybody. I mean, back in 2022, we heard Sheriff Mike Chitwood say, even though they told people to evacuate, they had 1,000 calls for service, a lot of those for people who were trapped in high water in their homes, and they were expecting the same thing with this storm. So as that rain keeps coming, we are going to probably see a little bit more of that. The other area that I've been keeping an eye on is over in Deltona. They have a lot of flooding over there, I'm hearing all so far, mostly in the streets. And of course, we have to look out for that Stone Island area over outside of Enterprise with the St. Johns River. A lot of that is going to start flooding, they anticipate, here pretty soon. But again, you can see, I'll step back out into it for real quick. The wind is definitely picking up here. And again, if people decided not to evacuate, they're going to be stuck in this, but we'll be at least safe, up a little bit higher. But around 1 a.m., I think is when we're going to start really seeing some problems with that storm surge with the high tide. So we'll keep an eye on it there. I'll send it back to you guys.
Yeah, that is the concern, the timing of all of this.
I just made a note, Molly Reed, checking with her at 1 a.m., high tide, and it seems like it's going to be bad timing as a lot of rain's going to be falling at that point.
All right, we do want to check in with our team of meteorologists now who are going county by county, giving us the details of those wind speeds, the rainfall totals, and just how quickly this storm is getting out of Central Florida, hopefully sooner rather than later.
We're starting to see things ramp up, right? I mean, when we go out to Mike DeForest, we go out to Molly Reed, we're starting to get all of our reporters that are scattered all across Central Florida, and the conditions are really starting to worsen. So we had a really rough go with all those tornado warnings for several hours this afternoon. We had a little bit of a lull, but now that Milton has moved on shore, that wind field is now expanding. Almost think as like a wave of energy now starting to kind of circulate all through Central Florida. So this is the wind versus wind gusts. The winds are in the blue. The smaller numbers here are those wind gusts. So let's kind of take you throughout some parts of Central Florida. Right now, Melbourne, sustained winds of 22 miles per hour, but we are clocking winds of 38 miles per hour. Areas in and around Orlando already officially clocking wind gusts of 55 miles per hour. Now remember, the center of Milton is still expecting to make its way very close to areas of Osceola County and Brevard, meaning as that pressure really starts to tighten, we're going to see those winds really start to ramp up. So that tropical storm force wind gusts, some areas could see hurricane sustained winds really right along the immediate core of Milton. So our southern zones, that does include Polk, Osceola, and Brevard County into the overnight hours. So again, wind gusts are going to increase over the next couple of hours. So right now, New Smyrna Beach at 50 miles per hour, Daytona Beach in and around where Molly is, 64 mile per hour wind gusts sustained currently at 36. So strong tropical storm force wind certainly exceeding many areas, and even areas of Leesburg right now. We're still clocking winds in Leesburg and Claremont this evening Wind gusts up to about 63 miles per hour. So as you can tell, overall, everyone is really starting to feel that wind. About an hour ago, these winds, the numbers here were not as high, so we're really going to tighten that pressure gradient. We're going to see a lot of this move through a big portion of central Florida. With all that wind, we are looking at the big concern for power outages. As of right now, obviously in the bright red is where the system made landfall, 170,000 folks there without any power, but we are starting to see those numbers clock up. As of now, Kissimmee, areas in and around Osceola County, Brevard, between 1,000 to 2,000 residents. But interesting enough, areas in Leesburg, in Lake County, we are now up to we're up to about 16,000 there with power outages, 9,000, 16,000 there. I mean, so at the end of the day, we are still talking about a lot of folks here now that are going without power. This is before we're going to be ramping up those winds across a big portion of central Florida. So this is what we are expecting. Now, again, the tornado threat is over, but now we shift to heavy rainfall, but also those strong wind gusts. So again, we are expecting the possibility of 75 to 100 mile per hour winds, kind of in the zone highlighted in red. Notice it's on the right side of the storm. This is where we're going to be dealing with the worst of the wind. So Osceola, Polk County, and Brevard at this point in time. That's not to say we can't get hurricane force gusts a little further to the north, but for the most part, it's going to be more tropical storm force winds across areas of Lake, Sumter, Marion, Volusia, a big portion of northern Orange County, as well as Seminole County. But the folks not getting as much wind, well, they're going to be getting a lot more rain. So let me show you here. This is the rainfall, one of the many models we look at. So this really kind of just tells the picture here. Where the track is expected to go, that northern side of it, we're still talking up to about 10 to 13 inches of rainfall when this is all said and done. Up and down the I-4 corridor, even areas of Leesburg, over 7. Now, of course, this is a model. This is one value, so we do give that range. Of course, could see isolated maximum amounts. And I have to say, since about Sunday night, a lot of the models are still honing in on the heaviest of the rain across that I-95, I-4 corridor there in and around Volusia County and Seminole County. So we are really going to closely monitor this. So we still got the wind, we still got the rain, and the rain is still coming down in many parts of central Florida. Giving you more of a perspective of what's falling right now across central Florida is meteorologist Julie Broughton.
Candace, we want to take a radar tour, zoom in, show you what is happening where you live, because of course, that's what we all care about, right? What's going on in our neighborhood. So we'll start out with a wide view of all of central Florida. Just about all of us are seeing some rain right now, with the exception, much of Brevard County, you're dry at the moment, but the rain started really early for you. And part of Osceola County also not seeing much rain out there right now. Here's how it looks as we go in a little bit closer up into, we'll start out in Flagler County. So Palm Coast, Beverly Beach down toward Bunnell. Notice where you see the areas of yellow. That is moderate rainfall. And again, because these outer rain bands are wrapping around back toward that center of circulation, all of this is lifting off to the north. Now let's go a little bit farther to the south, and that's where the rain really picks up. We saw Molly Reed in Volusia County, so Daytona Beach down toward New Smyrna Beach, right along I-4. Look at this, down through DeLand, Orange City, Deltona. You were seeing about 2 to 4 inches of rain coming down per hour in some of these heavier rain bands. Taking you down towards Sanford, Lake Mary, Winter Springs, Altamont Springs, also seeing that heavy rain. Here's what's happening as we look out what's going on for those of you in Osceola, or Marion County rather. And Candace was showing us all those power outages in Marion County from the Ocala National Forest back toward Bellevue, Ocala, Denellen, Rainbow Lakes Estates, Romeo, all seeing some of that heavy rain as we look a little bit farther to the west. We go a little bit farther to the south. The Villages, we saw Mike DeForest there. Very windy for you, very rainy. And then we take you down Claremont, Dr. Phillips, Kissimmee, Haines City. Again, talking about that very heavy rainfall. And we will continue to see more of these showers. Rainfall totals, some spots already up to around 6 inches over the last 6 hours. We'll take a look at that for you coming up in just a few minutes.
Julie, thank you. She just mentioned Mike DeForest. We really want to zero in on those local impacts you're seeing around Central Florida.
Yeah, especially in western parts of Central Florida right now, where we are certainly seeing some stronger rain bands. There's Mike there. And Mike, it looks like it has definitely intensified since the last time we checked in with you.
Yeah, since we checked in with you about maybe, 20, 30 minutes ago, I think the sustained winds have gotten stronger and the wind gusts have gotten stronger. Now, I do not have a wind meter out here, but if I had to guess from my past experience, they definitely feel like tropical storm force winds that we're now getting through here. We are located in the Villages, in the Sumter County part of it. We've been monitoring both Sumter County and Marion County for the last couple days out here. And one of the biggest concerns right now is going to be the flooding. Now, not right here in the Villages. Where the developed part of the Villages are, the county officials believe that it's been built up high enough above the 100-year floodplain and that flooding won't be necessarily a concern for homes. But in other parts of Sumter County, yes, there are flooding concerns and still wind concerns, even with these tropical storm force winds. We are already seeing trees coming down in parts of Sumter County, particularly down in Bushnell and Webster. They're blocking some roads there. I don't know yet if county officials have been able to get out there. It's kind of reaching that borderline that they would want to get out there and try to do some work right now, especially since at this point they're advising everybody to be inside anyway. There's really no reason you should be out on the roads. Wow, it looks like tumbleweed, but we're actually seeing, I think that's some Spanish moss that's going rolling down the street here. So we're starting to see little branches come off, some twigs and leaves, and obviously compared to the significant damage that they're seeing out in the Sarasota area where this is coming ashore, this is nothing. But considering how far we are from the storm, and I think folks here, particularly in the Villages, Sumter County, want to know what's happening outside. You got to keep in mind this area in terms of population has exploded since the last time we had a significant hurricane come through here. I'm thinking back Hurricane Charlie 20 years ago. I think this area has doubled, tripled in size, and fortunately most of these homes are newer, built with all the modern hurricane building codes. So county officials have not been terribly concerned about structural issues with homes, and that's why they've been encouraging people to shelter in place. Now, if you are in other parts of Sumter County, Marion County, living in a mobile home or RV, it's definitely getting to be a little too late to get out there, but there are still some space available in the shelters. Here in Sumter County, those shelters are filling up quick, including the Sumter County Fairgrounds filled up several hours ago. I know up in Marion County, they have a lot more availability. Wow, we're starting to get some wind kicking here. A lot more availability in their shelters. Because as these winds continue to pick up, as this storm moves closer, even though we are not in the direct path of it by any means, we are certainly feeling the effects out here. And just again, in the little bit that we've been out here, the amount of wind that's picked up and the rain, and it's going to continue falling all night, and that's why emergency officials still keeping an eye on this out here.
Mike, you're clocking in at 67-mile-per-hour winds right now, according to our chief meteorologist. I always find it interesting when we do this because you hear a lot of Floridians say, I don't really get out of bed before a Category 3 or something crazy.
To me, I think I may have lost.
Oh, yeah, okay. I guess he lost his IFB system there. But pretty intense. 67-mile-per-hour winds. Does appear that the folks in that neighborhood did a good job of securing their things, because only seeing some Spanish moss around is pretty good.
Well, it's just the beginning, so we'll see what it looks like in the morning. News 6's Troy Campbell is live in Orange County, and again, it's a similar scenario. Looks like that rain has been picking up where you are. And are we hearing some type of siren in the background?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's because of a power outage issue, because there was some, it is, because they did have their lights on. And now there's no lights on at the building, and it's just blinking, and you hear an alarm going off. So that's why you also have first responders out, or at least police, making sure there's no one out up to no good, looting, stuff like that. So here, according to what we just saw from Candace, it almost looks like in Orange County, we have more of the wind just beneath us and more of the rain just above us here in Orange County. So hopefully we can kind of get some sort of relief from it. Not really seeing that right now. Wind gusts could get up to, they say about 80 miles an hour. We're about 55 miles an hour. Of course, that's according to our meteorologist. I can't just tell that. But the mayor also said, Mayor Jerry Demings, he said that it could get up to a foot of rain in Orange County. I'm walking over here just to kind of get a look at the lake here to see the water level on it after we've had this rain coming for a few hours here, which the rain has been pretty steady. We did have the tornado warning going off earlier this evening, and there's a lot of cars on the road, so that was something a bit concerning. Happy to report there's really no one out, as there shouldn't be, especially since it does appear in this area of Orange County there is power outages. Orange County says that there is 1,300 people that have gone into their shelters. They opened up about a dozen schools so they could do so. OUC, Duke Energy, I keep refreshing their website of their outages. They're up to about 17,000 outages. Of course, county by county is all going to be different, but as the more wind event we have, we could see that number going up. But again, just getting a look at the deteriorating conditions here in Orange County. And it looks like the water level here is pretty fine, hasn't gone up too much. And I'll leave you on Orange County. Mayor says that the people in Orange County, they did take very seriously their warnings to sandbags. So they say that they gave away, in the past 2 days, they gave away 200,000 sandbags. And even one of the commissioners, I'm told, hand delivered some of those sandbags this morning to some of his constituents. Back to you.
All right, Troy Campbell, those are some impressive numbers that you were reporting there. 1,300 people in shelters, 200,000 sandbags. That is the good news. The people prepared for this storm. Yep. We're also getting updated numbers. He mentioned some of them. I know you're getting real-time numbers in terms of those power outages.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of overall county-wide.
Right.
So if you want to take it to the maps here, so it looks like obviously the main areas where we're seeing the worst of the power outages, obviously where Milton made landfall. But I mean, even outside of that, look at Marion County. We're talking about you guys at 34,000 people without power throughout that county. We're up to 12,000 in Volusia, a little less in Seminole County at 9,000, and about 18,000 in areas of Orange County. Surprisingly, the ones that are the lower ones are the ones that have had the most activity today when it comes to severe weather threat, about 1,000 to 2,000 between Osceola and Brevard. But that is certainly going to change as, again, we're looking at that main line of Milton, that destructive core with the damaging winds are expecting. You can kind of see here, kind of overlaid the forecast track for the most part, and where we could see the worst of the wind gusts at this point in time.
And real quickly, as we talk about those outages, because the further we get into the night, more and more people are going to lose power.
Yes.
But you can still stay connected with the News 6 weather team. Many resources available online and on the radio.
ClickOrlando.com. We are streaming on YouTube as well, on our website, your pinpoint weather apps, our news apps. And of course, all of our partners, Mix 105.1,
Very
FMM.
important. If you've got a charged phone and hopefully the internet towers are there, you should be able to get us. As this thing moves through, say, the Orlando area, Central Florida, are you still expecting winds that could be 100 miles per hour? Are you thinking gusts at that or sustained?
Right. No, at the end of the day, tropical storm force sustained winds certainly can be expected, especially there in that core. Hurricane force gusts can be expected. Let me kind of advance this graphic here, kind of give you an idea. This, of course, is an estimate, but you can see we're looking more on the right side. Remember how we talked about that dirty side of the storm? It's really going to be the right side where we could pick up wind gusts upwards about 75 to 100 miles per hour. Everywhere else, we're still talking 55 to 75. Okay. We're already clocking winds upwards of about 67 miles per hour. I think it's actually before this power outage
Sumter
graphic.
County. Sumter County, yeah.
There we go. I can't even, can we pull this full? I can't even see. There it
Tiny
is.
screens.
67 mile per hour winds right now in Claremont. Areas in and around Orlando at 54. 43 right now in DeLand, and look at areas of Daytona Beach. Right now we're getting close to almost 60 mile per hour winds.
Wow. And which is interesting, because you would think it gets farther away from the Gulf Coast, the wind speed would go down, the gusts would go down, right? Because it's had time to break apart and weaken a little bit.
Right, it's basically run into land, and then as it weakens, that energy needs to go somewhere. So you almost think of like a wave of wind having to basically go out. So. It's fluid, right? It's the atmosphere. There's nothing static about it. So moisture, wind, air, it's all got to go somewhere.
Such a wild storm. The dirty side looks like the clean side on the satellite image.
Right. On the
but
radar,
according to the wind, it is still the dirty
right side.
All right, let's get you out to Eric Sandoval. He is live for us in Kissimmee.
Which is the dirty side.
Yes, that is definitely the dirty side. How dirty is it out there, Eric?
You know, the dirtiness, Matt, if you will, is coming in waves, but we really are starting to feel some of those, you know, tropical storm force gusts, and, you know, the sustained wind is actually really picking up here. Just want to tell you exactly where we are. Right along here, right in back of me, this is Highway 192 here in the Kissimmee area, and just a couple blocks over is 535. So basically 192 and 535 here in the Kissimmee area. You can see we still have power here, but we don't expect that to last for long. These gusts, though, are knocking out power. I just checked with Kissimmee Utility Authority. Right now, they have about 1,000 households here in the Kissimmee area without power. The latest one to pop up on their outage map is the Kissimmee Airport. If you live near the Kissimmee Airport and you're watching us on your smart device right now, you know you just lost power. But again, we expect that number to go up even more. Something of note that I do want to pass along here from the Kissimmee area is the Osceola County Emergency Management Agency, in partnership with Kissimmee and St. Cloud, a curfew is now in effect. It started at 8 o'clock tonight. It is going to last all night long and go until 10 a.m. You know, just like Candace and the other meteorologists have been saying, we expect the eye of the storm, or at least what's left of the eye, to come through here probably about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. And that is when we're going to really expect to see some of the transformers exploding in the background, the communities around here losing a lot of power. But I can tell you that the sound of the wind here has been a constant ever since about noon or 1 o'clock this afternoon. We've heard that low-level roar of the wind, but it's really picked up a lot here within the last, I want to say, probably about 45 minutes. But whoa. Just like I said, it comes in gusts, it comes in waves. But just like Candace said, we're not getting a lot of rain with this. We are on the windy side of this storm so far tonight. But we're going to ride this out all night long and bring you these live images all night long. Matt, Lisa?
All right. Eric Sandoval, we want to stay in Osceola County. Our Trooper Steve has been out there as well today, keeping an eye on things for us. He was out on the roads earlier today. Last time we checked in, he was at the arena out there. Nice protected space where some people are staging to respond after Milton moves through.
That's right, Lisa. Listening to everybody else's stand-up in audio right now, I kind of feel like I should be out there with them, but we are here at Osceola Heritage Park, and the conditions here, obviously, really nice inside, controlled environment. This is usually where the rodeo's happening or graduations and big events, but I'm glad we got to come deeper inside of the arena here because the Osceola County Sheriff's Office is staged here. This is what we are calling rescue headquarters. They have 2 high water rescue vehicles that are here. Obviously, a lot of their staged patrol cars because, hey, you got to get here somehow, but they have their agricultural unit, their ag marine unit. So we're talking 3 boats, ATVs, and they're staged here ready to respond afterwards. Now, of course, their brothers and sisters from the fire department are here as well, which is pretty cool to see the partnership that is taking place out here. Now, I want to show you something that's really cool. Brewer, follow me. Our photojournalist Brewer's with me over here. And I tell you, I've never seen a helicopter inside of a building, but the Osceola County Sheriff's Office has staged Star 1 and Star 2 inside here at Heritage Park. One, to keep them safe from the airport, because who knows what's going to happen to some of the hangars, but they can actually deploy right from this location. Obviously not inside here, but they would wheel them out and then they can take off from this area. The canine unit is also here. The puppies are here as well, being well taken care of, staying pretty busy. But the fire department did also bring a lot of their specialized equipment. So these are not your ordinary fire trucks. We're talking their special operations unit, different type of equipment in here for search and rescue, high water. They also have high water rescue vehicles, which is pretty interesting. I did not know they had them, but here in Osceola County, a very rural county, this is the kind of stuff that they have. All stacked up, ready to go. They're also responding to calls directly from here. Within the past hour, FD has gone in and out of here a few times. This is why they're encouraging you guys to stay home. Over to my left over here is the National Guard. The National Guard is staged here as well. Here at Heritage Park, we have 4 high water rescue vehicles, about 8 ATVs, along with other equipment that is staged off into the corner over there. Behind our photojournalists here, and I'll walk over here and follow you guys, are the Osceola County airboats. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, one in the far back over there. Airboats are probably the best rescue tool at this point. I made mention on one of our hits earlier, Lewis Bolden, on one of our last big storms, was standing there live when a vehicle got stuck right behind him, and boom, the Osceola County Sheriff's Office came in on an airboat in pretty deep water and was able to effect that rescue. These airboats can get all over the place. We just had some of the command staff from the Osceola County Sheriff's Office swing by over here. Chief of Police Doug Gerke even swung by, making sure that everyone is okay. And that's the coolest thing, I think, what I'm seeing right now on a level, because all this weather's moving in, so they're starting to bring a lot of their people to shelter in place. But the command is still out there. They're still out there checking on their men and women to make sure that they are ready. There are shifts taking place, and they're mandating that a lot of these men and women stop working for a few, take a break. Because guys, let's be real, Lisa, a lot of these people know that once this calms down and passes, these hours are going to be long worked. They're going to be out on the road for quite some time. So this is a very climate controlled, good place to be. Plenty of equipment out here ready to respond. And I think that's the coolest thing that Osceola County residents should know, that once this thing is clear, these men and women are ready to hit the road and make sure that if you are in trouble, that they're there to take care of you guys. Live out here at Heritage Park. Back to you guys.
Steve, very impressive. Millions of dollars in equipment, those high water trucks. Very cool. I hope to never see one in person. You don't want to see one of those. Right. That's for sure. But I'm curious. So, I was going to ask Steve where all the